Chapter 374. Too bad it's fake. As expected, Kong Xiaobo's father frowned as he looked at Kong Xiaobo's side. He couldn't help but frown when he saw the two boys and two girls. He didn't think too much about it before. It was normal for his son to bring his classmates to the banquet, but two boys and two girls? That was a little too obvious. Kung Fu also suspected that there were two couples after hearing Kong Mingming's words. Did his son learn bad things? But Mr. Kong couldn't ask Xiaobo about it in front of everyone, and he knew that his nephew wasn't doing this out of goodwill. He'd tried so hard to stop Xiaobo and his classmate from staying at the hotel, after all, and there had to be some sort of grudge between them. It seemed that the grudge was with the girl beside his son. As for the girl shamelessly seducing this and that, Kung Fu was skeptical. Dr. Kang's birthday banquet officially started at 10 in the morning, and Lin Yi saw a few familiar faces. There was Lu Tianyi and Guan Xuemin, both of them sitting at a table and chatting. Dr. Kang's eldest son, the current head of Dr. Kang's group, Kong Guifeng, was also sitting at their table, chatting with the two of them. Lin Yi didn't go over to greet them. He hid in the corner, waiting for the banquet to start. Kong Xiaobo gave his gift and left. It seemed that after he created the Miracle Dr. Guan brand, it was inevitable that he would become Dr. Kang's competitor. He didn't have to worry about anything anymore. Judging from Kong Xiaobo's current situation, there was no way he could get back together with Kong Mingming's family. At least not with Xiaofan around. Amidst the impassioned speech of the MC and the applause of the guests, Dr. Kong slowly walked out. This was an old man with a rather dignified appearance. He was dressed in a red Han costume and had the temperament of an ancient Chinese medicine practitioner. Although it was a little speechless to become a leading enterprise in the domestic pharmaceutical industry because of a magical prescription, it was undeniable that Dr. Kang's golden creation did have a magical effect. Of course, many old people in the medical field didn't care much about Dr. Kong, because, in their opinion, Dr. Kong couldn't be called a miracle doctor at all. They didn't know where he got a good prescription from, which made him the Dr. Kong of today. Looking at the other medicines produced by his company, they were nothing more than common medicines for common colds, headaches, and fever. The formulas were all open to the public, and there was nothing special about them. If it weren't for his golden creation medicine's reputation, he might not even be able to sell his home medicine. But he was lucky. With the red medicine, no matter what he produced later on, even if it was a normal medicine, it would still sell well. That was why he was able to create such a colossus like Dr. Kang's medical group in a short period of time. In fact, many people knew that Dr. Kang's medical skills weren't great. Thank you, guests, for coming to Dr. Kang's 62nd birthday. Next, we will send our blessings from Dr. Kang's descendants. The MC started the first procedure of the birthday banquet, which was to let the descendants present their gifts. After the descendants had presented their gifts, it would be the turn of the famous people in the society and Dr. Kang's friends. As for the others, they wouldn't have the chance to present their gifts on stage and could only place their gifts at the registration counter at the entrance. The first to go on stage was Dr. Kang's eldest son, Kong Guifeng. He walked up the stage with his head held high, holding a red brocade box in his hand. The packaging was exquisite. "Dad, I'm giving you 100-year Tian Shan Snow Lotus." His eldest son, Kong Guifeng, presented the brocade box with both hands and said respectfully, "I wish Dad a long and healthy life." "Good, very good. Bring it over and let me have a look." Dr. Kong ordered the MC. The MC quickly presented the brocade box to Dr. Kong. He opened it, and there was indeed 100-year Tian Shan Snow Lotus in it. Looking at its size, even if it wasn't 100-year Tian Shan Snow Lotus, it was at least 70 or 80 years old. Wow! Everyone was excited, as expected of a family of miracle doctors. Even their birthday gifts were rare treasures. After the eldest son, Kong Guifeng, left the stage, it was his youngest son, Kong Tsopu, who presented his gift. He was holding a similar brocade box in his hand. It was incomparably beautiful. Dad, I'm giving you 1,000-year ginseng. It has already begun to take human form. This is a wild ginseng that I've sent people to search the mountains for 3 years and 3 months. Kong Suepu presented the brocade box with both hands and said respectfully, I wish Dad a long and happy life. Good, good, good. Dr. Kong said good 3 times in a row. He gestured to the MC and said, let me have a look. I want to see what 1,000-year ginseng looks like. His eldest son, Kong Guifeng, presented 100-year Tian Shan snow lotus. It was already rare, but this 1,000-year ginseng was even rarer. How could Dr. Kong not be excited? The MC quickly presented the brocade box to Dr. Kong. Dr. Kong opened the brocade box, and there was indeed a huge ginseng inside. It had already grown into human form. Although he didn't know if it was 1,000-year ginseng, it was indeed a rare treasure. All the guests gasped as they looked at the ginseng in miracle Dr. Kang's hands enviously, congratulating him nonstop. Your uncle really knows how to curry favor. He gave me a ginseng, but it's fake. It seems like he's the same as that Kong Mingming, a master of swindling people. Lin Yi's voice wasn't loud. He was only talking to Kong Xiaobo, Tang Yin, and Xiaofan. However, the guests nearby heard it. Fake? Is it real? The guests nearby heard Lin Yi's words and were in an uproar. They couldn't help but look at Lin Yi. If these people didn't pay attention, things would have been fine. But the noise was heard by Kong Suepu, and he looked at Lin Yi's direction with a cold, unfriendly gaze. However, Kong Suepu didn't say anything. He signaled his son, Kong Mingming. Kong Mingming immediately jumped out and pointed at Lin Yi. Where did this guy come from? What fake? How can this ginseng be fake? Seeing Kong Mingming jump out in such a hurry, Lin Yi smiled faintly. Since it's artificially cultivated, it's naturally fake. Not to mention 1,000-year ginseng, it's not even 10 years old. Lin Yi didn't want to interfere with Kong Xiaobo's family matters. However, this Kong Mingming was too despicable. Lin Yi didn't mind mocking him a bit. He wanted to embarrass him and his father. Guards, throw him out for me. How dare he cause trouble at Grandpa's birthday banquet? Kong Mingming roared angrily. The security guards in the banquet hall knew about the relationship between Lin Yi and Li Yixuan. Although they heard Kong Mingming's order, they didn't dare to make a move. Chapter 375. How embarrassing! Although he didn't know much about ginseng, he didn't really trust his youngest son. His youngest son never did proper work, never went to the company, and used the dividends from the shares to eat, drink, and gamble. His grandson was just like him. What kind of 1,000-year-old ginseng could he dig up? Even Dr. Kong himself didn't believe it. But whether it was real or fake, this was his son's sincerity. Even if it was fake, he couldn't show it in front of outsiders. If there was anything, it should be discussed behind closed doors. Now that an outsider like Lin Yi had said it out loud, Dr. Kong felt like he had lost a lot of face. Kid, why do you say this ginseng is fake? Although Dr. Kang's voice was a little angry, he still maintained a calm demeanor. If you're just spouting nonsense, then apologize, and I'll pretend I didn't hear it. But if you don't, then I'm sorry, we don't welcome you here. Dr. Kang's words were reasonable, and no one could find fault with them. Instead, they felt that he was very magnanimous. Lin Yi had embarrassed them like this, and Dr. Kong only wanted Lin Yi to apologize. Lin Yi didn't expect these people to have such a big reaction. Even the old Dr. Kong had jumped out. It seemed that if he didn't say a few words, he would implicate Kong Xiaobo. Lin Yi could only stand up and explain helplessly. Wild ginseng has a long reed head and dense reed bowls. The ginseng body is the same length as the root. It has a human shape and a horizontal body. The horizontal lines on the main root are fine and clear. The color is darker, and the skin is thin and tough. There are many obvious pearl bumps. The cultivated ginseng is called garden ginseng. It has a short reed head and few reed bowls. The ginseng body is cylindrical, and the horizontal lines on the main root are sparse and discontinuous. The skin is thick and brittle, and the pearl bumps are not obvious. As for the authenticity of this ginseng, I think there should be experts in this field. Dr. Kong doesn't know, but there should be someone who knows, right? Lin Yi's words were very hurtful. It was obvious that he was mocking Dr. Kong for not knowing how to differentiate between real and fake ginseng. How could he be called a divine doctor? Dr. Kang's face changed. He didn't expect Lin Yi's words to be so logical. He thought that Lin Yi was just talking nonsense. He stood up and said something to give him a way out. But now Dr. Kong was in a dilemma. Nonsense. Kong Ming Ming jumped out again. Grandpa, don't listen to this guy's nonsense. He was sent here by Kong Xiaobo to cause trouble. Let's put the ginseng away and ignore him. Kong Ming Ming's words obviously made people think that he had a guilty conscience. If the ginseng wasn't fake, he should take it out and let the experts here identify it. Why did he ask them to put it away? Kong Ming Ming did have a guilty conscience. This ginseng was bought with his father, Kong Suipu. How could he not know whether it was real or fake? This ginseng was bought from an artificial farm. It only cost a few thousand yuan. How could it be 1,000-year-old ginseng? But Kong Suipu and Kong Ming Ming both knew that their father didn't know whether the ginseng was real or fake. Kong Suipu's brother, Kong Guifeng, also didn't know. Even if Kong Guifeng guessed that it was fake, he wouldn't lose face in front of others. Besides, Kong Suipu only took the dividends in the company and didn't fight for power. This made Kong Guifeng have no resentment towards Kong Suipu. The two brothers got along well. Kong Guifeng often cleaned up after Kong Suipu's bad things. However, they didn't expect that Lin Yi would appear out of nowhere. Forget it. Take it away. Whether it's real or fake, it's a gift from Suipu. Dr. Kong was not stupid. Since Lin Yi said so, he must be confident. If he took it seriously, he would only humiliate himself. It was better to admit it generously. Anyway, others knew what kind of person his youngest son was. His reputation was already bad. It didn't matter if it was a little bit more. Dr. Kong admitted it, so casually. It didn't cause any uproar. Since Dr. Kong said so, people didn't want to distinguish whether it was real or fake. Next was Kong Xiaobo's father. It was a very ordinary gift. It was just a few years old Ganoderma. Kong Suipu and Kong Ming Ming had wanted to find fault with it, but it was just a few years old Ganoderma. You couldn't find any fault with a few years old Ganoderma. It wasn't a rare item in the first place. If they wanted to find fault with it, it would be like picking bones in an egg. Kong Suipu and Kong Ming Ming didn't have a choice. They could only vent their anger on Kong Xiaobo later. The sons and grandsons had all given their gifts. Now it was the grandson's turn. But according to Dr. Kang's patriarchal mindset, only men were allowed to give gifts. Granddaughters couldn't go up. The first to go up was Kong Guifeng's son, Kong Xiaolong. This Kong Xiaolong looked older, around 20 years old. He wore glasses and looked like a gentleman. He held a document in his hand as he walked up steadily. Grandpa, this is a research topic I researched during my PhD studies. I have already obtained a patent for it. This is a certificate from the school. Kong Xiaolong handed the certificate over respectfully. The MC was about to take it when Dr. Kong waved his hand and walked up himself. His face was flushed, the unhappiness from before gone. Good, Xiaolong, good job. I'm very happy. With that, Miracle Dr. Kong took the certificate and looked at it with a smile. He patted Xiaolong's shoulder. Work hard. You're the next generation Miracle Doctor of House Kong. Xiaolong nodded. Wah-wah. The audience applauded. Everyone knew that Miracle Dr. Kong was choosing his successor. Is your eldest cousin a medical student? Lin Yi was a little surprised. He didn't expect Dr. Kang's family to have someone who studied medicine. Yes, he graduated from a proper medical school and is currently studying for a PhD in traditional Chinese medicine. Kong Xiaobo introduced. Actually, he's the only one who really knows medicine. It was a little ironic and funny, but it was the truth. Lin Yi was speechless as well. Why did Miracle Dr. Kang's family seem to be so unorthodox? After that, it was Kong Xiaoming's turn. His gift was even more mysterious. He said it was some kind of ancient prescription. But with his father Kong, Sui Pu's example, no one was curious anymore. It was obvious that it was fake. How could ancient prescriptions be so easily obtained? Chapter 376. I step even if Dr. Kong didn't know much about medicine. He'd read a lot of books in order not to be a laughingstock. How could such an ordinary prescription for typhoid be called an ancient prescription? What a wastrel! Dr. Kong sighed inwardly. Fortunately, Dr. Kong had his eldest son Kong Guifeng and grandson Xiaolong. At least the Kangs had a continuation, and they wouldn't fall after his death, at least until Xiaolong's generation. As for his great-grandchildren, they'd have their own destinies. Miracle Dr. Kong couldn't care less about what would happen after his death. Dr. Kong placed Kong Mingming's prescription under Xiaolong's certificate and nodded nonchalantly. All right, whether or not this prescription works, it's still a token of Xiaoming's sincerity. After Kong Mingming left, it was Kong Xiaobo's turn to present his gift. When the MC called out Kong Xiaobo's name, Kong Xiaobo tensed up. Boss, can I do it? Sure, why not? Just go. Lin Yi patted Kong Xiaobo's shoulder encouragingly. Kong Xiaobo nodded and walked up the stage with the antique box Lin Yi had given him. Second Grandpa, this is a rare pill called the Pill of Life Extension and Toxin Cleansing. After taking it, a large amount of impurities will be expelled from the body, cleansing the bones and marrow. After the toxins are expelled, the body's physiological functions will return to peak condition, and it'll add at least 5 to 10 years to your lifespan. Kong Xiaobo presented the box with both hands. Happy birthday, Second Grandpa. Oh! Dr. Kong frowned, displeased. As Dr. Kong, he was at the pinnacle of the medical world, and he'd never heard of something like the Pill of Life Extension and Toxin Cleansing. After eating it, it could even cleanse the marrow and reshape the bones. Could it really achieve the goal of prolonging one's life? Dr. Kong felt that if he accepted this elixir, he would lose face. As a Dr. Kong, did he still need this kind of elixir? Moreover, it sounded like an unreliable elixir. However, before Dr. Kong could speak, Kong Mingming jumped out and grabbed the small box in Kong Xiaobo's hand. Just as he was worrying about not being able to find a reason or excuse to attack Kong Xiaobo, this Kong Xiaobo actually took the initiative to come to him. Kong Xiaobo, don't try to mystify us. The Pill of Life Extension and Toxin Cleansing? How could this be? Do you think you're a martial arts practitioner who sells strength pills? Kong Xiaoming glared at him. What kind of person is my grandpa? It's Dr. Kong. What medicine doesn't our family have? But I've never heard of such a thing in this world. There are many things you haven't heard of. Kong Xiaobo said coldly. Humph, what kind of trash is this? Then I'll open it for everyone to see. When Kong Mingming heard that Kong Xiaobo still dared to argue, he was furious. You won't shed a tear until you see your coffin, huh? As he said that, Kong Mingming opened the small box in Kong Xiaobo's hands and took out a black elixir. He laughed loudly. What pill of life extension and toxin cleansing is this? It can even cleanse the marrow and reshape the bones? Have you read too many wuxia novels? Have you gone mad? Second Grandpa, I've already given you my birthday gift. Since second cousin doesn't believe me, I can't do anything about it. Kong Xiaobo resisted the urge to turn hostile and spoke in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. What? Feeling guilty? When Kong Ming Ming saw Kong Xiaobo's expression, he thought that he was feeling guilty. Kong Xiaobo, don't think that I don't know why you're here. Aren't you here to stand up for that B***TCH? She's trash that I've played with, and you're treating her like a treasure. You gave my grandfather a miraculous elixir that we've never heard of before. Aren't you trying to make a fool of our family? I know what you're thinking. You want people to see that our medical family hasn't seen this elixir before. That's what you're thinking, right? But you've miscalculated. My grandfather doesn't care for this trash of yours. As he said that, Kong Ming Ming threw the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing on the ground and stomped on it. That wasn't enough. He even used the soles of his feet to grind it until it was a pile of sticky powder. All right, you've given your birthday gift. You may leave. Throughout the entire process, Dr. Kong didn't say a word. He just stood there with a dark expression. He had his suspicions. Forget Kong Xiaobo. Even his eldest son couldn't get such an elixir. So where did Kong Xiaobo get it from? It had to be fake. He could tolerate Kong Ming Ming because Kong Ming Ming was his own grandson. But he couldn't tolerate Kong Xiaobo. He felt that Kong Xiaobo was here to stir up trouble, especially after hearing his grandson Kong Ming Ming's words. So this cousin of his, Kong Xiaobo, was here to fight for a woman's affections. Nonsense. Dr. Kong snorted coldly. He looked at Kong Xiaobo's father. You've taught your son well. Why aren't you taking him away? Why are you leaving him here to embarrass yourself? Miracle Dr. Kong, on the other hand, didn't care about Kong Xiaoming's arrogant act of stepping on the pill. He didn't blame him, either. Clearly he was protecting him. Xiaobo's father was quite furious. It wasn't very appropriate for his son to get some elixir as a gift. But Kong Xiaoming was the one who'd been causing trouble from the beginning. How was he supposed to embarrass his son? Xiaobo, were you bewitched by someone? Who gave you the divine expansion elixir? Apologize to your second grandpa now. Kong Fu reprimanded Kong Xiaobo. In order to give him a way out, he pushed the responsibility of the elixir to someone else. He meant that Kong Xiaobo was bewitched by someone else, and it had nothing to do with him. Impossible. How could the elixir given by Big Brother be fake? Someone was blind and didn't know what was good. Kong Xiaobo was also furious. He said stubbornly, "It's a pity that such a good thing was wasted." Kong Xiaobo trusted Lin Yi unconditionally. If Lin Yi said that it was an elixir, then he would naturally believe it was an elixir. Kong Xiaobo couldn't hold it in anymore. Now that even his father was blaming him, he finally exploded. Xiaobo, the gift is here. Some people call themselves divine doctors, but they're just quacks with bad eyesight. Lin Yi walked over with Tang Yun and Xiaofan and said to Kong Xiaobo, "This is our Kong family's matter. Who are you to say anything?" Dr. Kong was already furious when Lin Yi exposed the ginseng. He didn't hold back when he saw Lin Yi getting involved in his family's matter. Chapter 377. Being a supporting character, Mr. Lin. Lu Tianyi couldn't believe his eyes. Lin Yi was at the banquet, and it seemed like he was on Kong Xiaobo's side. Lu Tianyi made his decision without hesitation. He would stand on Lin Yi's side. He had to explain to Lin Yi that he was only attending Dr. Kang's birthday banquet as a show of respect. "Mr. Lin, why are you here?" "I'm so sorry I didn't see you earlier." Tianyi took a few steps to Lin Yi's side and spoke respectfully, under everyone's shocked gazes. Lu Tianyi didn't even need to think about the choice between Lin Yi and Dr. Kong to maximize the benefits of the Lu family, especially after hearing that Lin Yi had the intention of launching the Miracle Dr. Guan brand with him. Lu Tianyi was even more dismissive of Dr. Kong. "What kind of miracle doctor are you? All you have is a golden creation. Lin Yi is the miracle doctor." "Haha, I'm here with my classmate." Lin Yi shrugged and smiled. "Looks like some people aren't interested in my pills. I should have given them to you if I knew this would happen." "Is that so? That's great. Anything else?" Lu Tianyi was flattered by Lin Yi's words. He never doubted Lin Yi's pills. He'd even believed Lin Yi when he said he could bring the dead back to life. He'd seen his father's condition firsthand. He'd gone from an old man to a man in his prime. He'd even started a vegetable garden recently. Lu Tianyi was happy to see this change. Of course, the person he was most grateful for was Lin Yi. The 100 million was worth it. Looks like I have to continue befriending Lin Yi in the future. I don't have any at the moment. This was given to me by an expert. Lin Yi shook his head. If I have any, I'll give you one. All right? Thank you, Mr. Lin. Thank you, Mr. Lin. Don't worry, I'm not the kind of person who takes things for free. As long as you have this kind of elixir, let alone 100 million, I'll even give you 200 million. Lu Tianyi said repeatedly. Although his father's body was fine, it was good to have an elixir at home. He wasn't young anymore. Maybe he could use it one day. Everyone present, including Dr. Kong, was dumbfounded by Lu Tianyi's words. The pill that was crushed by Kong Mingming was worth 200 million yuan? Is it made of diamond? If these people didn't know Lu Tianyi and knew his identity, they might have thought that it was Kong Xiaobo who hired someone to help him fake the elixir. But who was Lu Tianyi? Did he need to help others fake the elixir? Besides, not to mention Kong Xiaobo, even Dr. Kong couldn't get Lu Tianyi to fake the elixir. Xiao He, why didn't you give me one of those elixirs? It's such a shame that it's ruined for no reason. Just when everyone was shocked, something even more shocking happened. Guan Shuamin stood up and walked over with a smile. He patted Lin Yi's shoulder. Dr. Kang's expression changed again. Could it be that the elixir was real? Otherwise, why would Guan Shuamin say that? Although Dr. Kong felt that Guan Shuamin didn't make as much money as him, Guan Shuamin's medical skills were better than his. Grandpa Guan, Mr. Lu were leaving. What about you guys? Lin Yi asked with a smile. I still have something to talk to you about. Of course, I'm going back with you. Guan Shuamin knew what Lin Yi meant. He smiled. After the medical company was built, he would have to fight with Dr. Kong for the market. He didn't care about his reputation. There's no point in staying here. Why don't we accompany Mr. Lin? Lu Tianyi expressed his loyalty. He knew how important a miracle doctor was to a family, and it was a miracle doctor who could bring the dying back to life. So Lu Tianyi had already put down his pride. What was the use of having more money and power in his hands? Wouldn't he lose everything if he died? But with a friend like Lin Yi, it was equivalent to having an exemption from death. Lu Tianyi wasn't stupid. Kong Xiaobo's father wanted to stand up and scold his son. What kind of friend did he find to mess around at the banquet? But at this moment, there was only excitement left in his heart. His son's classmate was so capable. House Lu's Lu Tianyi and Guan Shuamin were very friendly to him. This made Dr. Kang's reputation fall to the bottom. Lin Yi turned around and looked at Kong Xiaobo indifferently. If you're a man, hold Xiao Fan's hand and prove it to them. This was a good opportunity for Kong Xiaobo. If he forced him to acknowledge Xiao Fan as his girlfriend, then even if Kong Xiaobo's parents were unwilling, they couldn't do anything about it. Lin Yi had already set a good start for him. Now that everyone was on his side, if Kong Xiaobo held Xiao Fan's hand and announced something to Kong Mingming, he wouldn't receive disdain from the crowd, but shock. Kong Xiaobo nodded and held Xiao Fan's hand. He puffed out his chest and looked at Kong Mingming. Second cousin, I'll return the damage you've done to Xiao Fan one day. Who the hell are you? Don't think that just because your friend knows a few people, you're someone too. Kong Mingming might be arrogant and despotic, but he wasn't an idiot. When he saw how Lu Tianyi and Guan Shuamin were chasing after the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, he knew that he was in trouble. That pill might really be the real deal. He didn't know where the brat beside Kong Xiaobo got it from. But no matter what, he still crushed it. Therefore, Kong Mingming was obviously trying to be tough on the outside, afraid that others would blame him. So he shifted his target to Kong Xiaobo. Kong Xiaobo ignored him and turned to look at his second grandfather, saying with disappointment, "Dr. Kong, huh? I'm not worthy of you. Someone else gave you a fake ginseng and a fake prescription, and you happily accepted it. I sincerely gave you a pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, but you treated it like trash. Haha, it's fine if I don't enter this house." After saying that, Kong Xiaobo held Xiao Fun's hand and walked out of the banquet hall. Lin Yi had already laid the groundwork for him. If Kong Xiaobo didn't have the courage to stand up and say these words, then he'd really be a coward. Lin Yi held Tang Yin's hand and followed behind Kong Xiaobo. Today he appeared as a side character, and the main character was still Kong Xiaobo. Seeing Kong Xiaobo and Lin Yi's silhouettes getting smaller and smaller, Dr. Kong knew that today's banquet was destined to become a farce. Where's the pill? Dr. Kong wasn't in a good mood, so he could only vent his anger on Kong Mingming. The pill! Kong Mingming's heart skipped a beat as he looked at the spot where he'd stepped on the pill. Chapter 378. Meeting a fatty. However, just as Lin Yi was about to walk out of the banquet hall, something unexpected happened again. Lin Yi had just reached the entrance of the banquet hall when Yixuan followed a middle-aged man into the hall in a hurry. The middle-aged man was the owner of Moon on the Sea, President Tian. He and Yixuan were supposed to celebrate Dr. Kang's birthday, and since they were holding a birthday banquet in his territory, he had to be there as the owner to give his blessings. But to his surprise, people were already leaving the banquet hall. Hadn't the banquet just started? The dishes hadn't even been served yet, so why were people leaving already? Just when Mr. Tian was confused, Li Yixuan reminded him in a small voice, "Mr. Tian, this is Mr. Lin Yi." Ah, President Tian froze and looked at Lin Yi carefully. Sure enough, he was the same as the photo in the file. He hadn't noticed before, but after Yixuan's reminder, he immediately greeted him with a kind smile. "Young Master Lin, you're leaving? Hee, Uncle Tian, right?" Lin Yi saw him walk over with Yixuan and guessed who he was. "I'm just accompanying a classmate to his second grandpa's birthday banquet. I've already given him the gift, but he didn't like it, so there's no need for us to stay and embarrass ourselves." President Tian frowned. Young Master Lin's gift didn't catch his eye? Wasn't that suicidal? However, he didn't know if Lin Yi was on a mission or not, so he didn't dare say anything. He could only nod. "Do you need me to send someone to escort you?" "No need, we'll leave on our own." Lin Yi waved his hand and smiled. "All right, call me if there's anything. You can also look for Xiao Li." President Tian nodded. The scene at the entrance was witnessed by all the guests, causing them to be even more shocked. President Tian of Moon on the Sea was a celebrity in the upper class of Donghai City, and yet he was so polite to Lin Yi. Who exactly was this Lin Yi? Was he a young master from a rich family? From the looks of it, it should be. Dr. Kong had the worst expression on his face. He had never expected that Kong Xiaobo's classmate would be someone with a high status. If he had known that Lin Yi was a rich second generation, he wouldn't have let Kong Mingming crush the pill. The pill seemed to be real. Phew! After walking out of the banquet hall, Kong Xiaobo let out a long sigh and clenched his fists in excitement. "Boss, this is the first time I felt so proud. Look at my second grandpa and Kong Mingming's faces. They're all twisted. Right now, they were probably regretting to death that the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing had been crushed by Kong Mingming. That idiot is going to be in trouble when he gets home." Lin Yi patted Kong Xiaobo's shoulder. At the very least, Kong Xiaobo had taken the first step today, making him a man of indomitable spirit. Yeah, it's such a pity. If I'd known that Mr. Lin was the one who provided the pill, I'd have gone up to the stage and snatched it even if I'd been laughed at, Tianyi said regretfully. What a waste of a treasure. Xiaofan was worried that she would be humiliated by Kong Mingming's family. But now she understood that she could also stand on a high ground and look down on the Kong family. Just now, when Kong Xiaobo said those words in a cold voice, when he said that he wanted Kong Mingming to return the harm he had done to her, Xiaofin was so emotional. As for Kong Mingming, his eyes were flickering, and he didn't even dare to speak. "Thank you, Xiaobo." Xiaofin turned to look at Lin Yi. "Thank you, Xiaobo's boss. Hee, what's the point of saying all these?" Lin Yi waved his hand. "We're on the same side. Xiaobo, I'm going to give you a stage to show off. I'm going to let you stand at the same height as Dr. Kong, or even surpass him." "Really?" Kong Xiaobo was stunned, and his eyes shone with hope. He never doubted Lin Yi's words. This was just to express the surprise in his heart. "Boss, thank you." "Don't worry, I won't let you down." Just when Kong Xiaobo was extremely excited, a fatty ran out of the banquet hall, panting as he ran. As he ran, he said, little bro, wait for me." Lin Yi looked at the panting fatty and was confused. "Who are you calling?" "I'm calling you, little bro." The fatty ran to Lin Yi and kneeled in front of Lin Yi. "Little bro, please sell me one of that pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. I'm willing to pay any price. 100 million? No, 500 million is fine too." "Oh." Lin Yi was speechless as he looked at the fatty. Was there something wrong with this guy? Running out to buy a pill from him? Did he really believe it? "Little bro, I'm begging you." Seeing that Lin Yi wasn't answering, the fatty suddenly hugged Lin Yi's leg and started sobbing. "Sell me one. I'm willing to pay any price. As long as you're willing to sell it to me. You'll be Fatty Lai's savior. I'm begging you. I'm going to faint. Don't cry first." Lin Yi was a little dumbfounded. He'd wanted to move the fatty away and ignore him, but he didn't expect the guy to start crying like that, not to mention in such a heartbreaking manner. A grown man crying in front of him. Lin Yi really didn't know what to say. "Little bro, if you promise me, I'll stop crying." Fatty Lai woke up, snot dripping onto Lin Yi's pants. Lin Yi felt a chill run down his spine. "Then cry yourself to death." Lin Yi was speechless. "Then if I stop crying, you'll sell it to me?" Fatty Lai asked, quickly stopping his crying. "Old Lai, what are you doing? If you have something to say, just say it. Look at you making a fool out of yourself." Lu Tianyi spoke up. Evidently he knew the fatty. "Old Lu, don't you feel pain in your back? You're so happy that your dad's cured. But my old man's still lying on the sickbed. Sob, sob." Fatty Lai started sobbing again. "I told you to tell me the miracle doctor who treated your dad, but you kept it a secret. If I don't fight for it now, I'll lose my chance again. You old fox." Lin Yi understood now. This guy had a sick dad too. He knew Lu Tianyi, and he knew that Lu Tianyi's dad was cured, so he paid attention to it. He might have asked Lu Tianyi before, but Lu Tianyi didn't dare tell anyone about him without his permission, so Fatty Lai still held a grudge against Lu Tianyi. Chapter 379. Grab rubbish, bro, I'm not crying anymore. Can you sell me one? Fatty Lai ignored Lu Tianyi and looked at Lin Yi while wiping his tears. "Not for sale." Lin Yi shook his head. "Why?" Sob, sob. "Bro, I have money, I have money. I have money. Whatever that old fox Lu Tianyi can spend, I can too. I can spend even more than him." Fatty Lai cried again. Lin Yi was a little depressed. Why did this fatty love to cry so much? A crybaby? He helplessly explained. "I only have this one. I don't have any more now." "If that's the case, then when will you have it?" Fatty Lai's face turned dejected. "Just one? No more?" "I'm not sure." Lin Yi didn't know Fatty Lai at all, so he wouldn't just give him a random pill. The few elixirs in his hands were meant to be given out when the company opened for business as a gift to boost the company's reputation. Of course, Lin Yi wouldn't waste them. Fatty Lai was a crybaby, and he seemed like a filial son, but there were too many filial crybabies out there. Every single one of them would run up to him with tears and snot all over their faces. asking for pills. Even if he didn't tire himself to death refining pills, he'd still be annoyed to death by them. Therefore, this precedent could not be broken. He would never give it to someone he wasn't familiar with. Ah, I see. Sob, sob, sob. Fatty Lai started bawling again when he heard Lin Yi's words. Dr. Kong, that unfilial bastard. That bastard. What a waste of a heavenly gift. Mother asterisk her. Lin Yi sympathized with Fatty Lai's situation, but he couldn't just give him a pill out of sympathy, could he? Lin Yi wasn't a charity organization, after all. At that moment, a cleaner walked over with a trash bag, ready to throw it into the trash can of the resort. Fatty Lai's eyes were sharp, and he recognized the cleaner right away. It was the one who cleaned the pill that Kong Xiaoming had crushed in the banquet hall. He jumped up from the ground and ran to the cleaner's side. "Don't throw it away, just give me the trash bag." The cleaner was startled and was at a loss of what to do. She looked at the fatty, whose face was still full of tears and horror. You, what do you want?" Fatty Lai didn't want to drag this on any longer, so he didn't bother explaining and grabbed the trash bag from the cleaner's hands. He'd have screamed robbery if it weren't for the trash in the bag. But because the garbage bag was filled with useless trash, the cleaner didn't even fight with Fatty Lai when he saw him snatching it like a madman. He let go and ran away in fright. Who would fight with a madman like him over a trash bag? The cleaner thought that this fatty dressed like a dog, but he was actually a madman. It seemed like he had to stay away from him. Fatty Lai ignored the cleaner. He didn't care what the cleaner thought. Finding the pill that Kong Xiaoming crushed was the most important thing. Lin Yi, Kong Xiaobo, Tang Yin, Fun, and even Lu Tianyi looked at the crazy Fatty Lai in shock. They didn't know what he was trying to do. "Old Lai, what are you doing? What's wrong with you?" Lu Tianyi had a small conflict with Fatty Lai, but their relationship wasn't bad. He quickly reminded Fatty Lai when he saw him acting so shamelessly. If his business rivals saw this and filmed it, wouldn't they laugh at him? But Fatty Lai didn't seem to hear Lu Tianyi's words at all. He opened the trash bag in his hand and took out the things inside and threw them into the trash can. There were lunch boxes, instant noodle buckets, toilet paper with snot on it, chewed bubble gum, disposable chopsticks, and everything. There were even flies and mosquitoes flying out. Lu Tianyi felt disgusted. Was this Fatty Lai crazy? What was he doing? "Shut up. I want to find the pill that was crushed by that wastrel." Fatty Lai roared as he searched the trash bag for something. Forget it. Let him look for it. It would be his fortune if he could find it. Lin Yi shook his head. Although it was crushed by Kong Mingming, the effect was the same. Lu Tianyi was shocked. He didn't expect Fatty Lai to come up with this idea. He wanted to find the pill that Kong Mingming crushed. Found it. Found it. Fatty Lai pulled out a black ball from the trash bag and held it in his hands excitedly, as if he'd found a treasure. "Great, I finally found it. Ha ha ha. Ha ha, congratulations, Brother Lai." Lu Tianyi walked over and patted Fatty Lai's shoulder. "Get lost." Fatty Lai glared at Lu Tianyi. "Don't you dare take my pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. I'm not giving it to you. I'm not taking it." Lu Tianyi knew that he didn't tell Fatty Lai about Lin Yi. Fatty Lai was a little unhappy, but he couldn't blame Lu Tianyi. Without Lin Yi's permission, he wouldn't dare say anything about Lin Yi. Why is this pill so big? I didn't see it this big before." Fatty Lai suddenly ran over with the black ball in his hands. "Bro, can you help me take a look? Is this it? Why is there a stench? Is this pill smelly? Is good medicine bitter?" Lin Yi glanced at the black ball in Fatty Lai's hands and dodged to the back. Tang Yin wanted to go over to take a look, but Lin Yi pulled her back. "What's wrong?" Tang Yin was curious why Lin Yi didn't let her go over. "It's this pill, but it's stuck together with a ball of dog poop," Lin Yi said to Fatty Lai. "Dig out the light-colored thing on the left. That's dog poop, that's why it smells." Fatty Lai's eyes widened, sweating profusely. Dog poop, however. Fatty Lie gritted his teeth. Even if there was dog poop on it, he had to dig it out. Lu Tianyi couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Dog poop on it? This Fatty Lie sure was unlucky. But Fatty Lie didn't think so. In fact, he felt lucky. So what if it was dog poop? It was already good enough that he could find it. Chapter 380. Go get it. Lin Yi thought to himself that Fatty Lie was a rich man. These cigars were obviously expensive, but he threw them away just like that. The cost of one pill wasn't even as much as one of his cigars. Fatty Lie, on the other hand, didn't think so. He treated it like a treasure, and in his eyes he wouldn't sell it even if he offered it to Lin Yi for 500 million, let alone 100 million. It was a priceless treasure. As the saying goes, 1,000 gold can't buy 10 years of youth. If his father could live for another 10 years after eating this pill, it would be a priceless treasure. However, this pill seemed to be a lot less than before. Would it still be effective? At the thought, Fatty Lie quickly asked, "Bro, this pill is much smaller than before. Will it still work?" The pill of life extension and toxin cleansing had been stomped on by Kong Mingming, and quite a bit of it was stuck to the floor. Only a small amount was left after sweeping it up, and the rest was wiped away by the cleaner with a mop. A little. It's hard to say for 5 or 10 years, but it's still possible for him to live for another 1 or 2 years. "Lin," he said, "it depends on your father's condition and how much poison is in his body. My dad has uremia. Can he detoxify it?" Fatty Lie was afraid that Lin Yi would ignore him. Now that he saw Lin Yi asking him a question, he quickly went along with it. If he could get Lin Yi's guidance, he'd be so happy he'd go crazy. "Yes, it's a little effective. It won't be a problem to hold out for another year or so," Lin Yi said. "Ugh, can it be cured?" Fatty Lie asked quickly. "Maybe after eating 10 or 20, right? I can't say for sure." Lin Yi did not lie to him. How could uremia be so easily treated? Only the combination of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine could cure it. "Bro, can you cure my father? I'll follow you for the rest of my life. I'll do anything for you. No matter how much money you spend, I'm willing." Fatty Lie knelt in front of Lin Yi again. This time not only was his snot all over Lin Yi's pants, but the hand that had grabbed dog poop earlier was also grabbing onto Lin Yi's pants tightly. Let go of me first." Lin Yi thought to himself, "I'll throw these pants away when I get home. I can't keep them anymore." "Then you'll treat me?" Fatty Lie was overjoyed after hearing Lin Yi's words. "Get up right now and get the fuck back home. Give that to your old man to eat first. He won't die so soon," Lin Yi said helplessly. "Let me think about it first. Then we'll talk about it. Speaking of which, you seem to have some face. A celebrity? All right, I'll go back immediately." Fatty Lie nodded quickly. "I have a bit of a reputation in the business world." "Bro, what's up?" "Nothing much. I'll start a company in a few days, and you can come and support me when it opens. I'll give you a pill of life extension and toxin cleansing too." Lin Yi nodded. "Are you free?" "If not, then forget it." "Yes, yes, yes." Fatty Lie said the word yes 3 times in a row, afraid that Lin Yi wouldn't hear him clearly and cross him off the invitation list. He was so excited he almost fainted. "I'll be your follower. Don't worry, I might be fat, but I have strength. I'm good at running errands." "Then go. Get my number from Mr. Liu." Lin Yi was at his wits' end from Fatty Lie's pestering. He had no choice but to give him a pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Giving it to someone else to experiment with was no different than giving it to the fatty. All right. Fatty Lie nodded, satisfied, and respectfully sent Lin Yi off to a shabby van. Fatty Lie thought to himself, "So Lin Yi likes this kind of car? I'll get a new one tomorrow, just like him. That's the only way to show that I'm a good follower." Dr. Kang's birthday banquet was still going on, and the guests were all smiles, but Dr. Kang couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong with the atmosphere. He looked at Kong Ming Ming standing at the side, and it reminded him of what happened earlier. After the guests finished giving their gifts, Dr. Kong waved at Kong Ming Ming. Kong Ming Ming quickly ran over. He knew that he'd gotten into trouble, and the situation was clear. Lin Yi was a young master, and he didn't know how Kong Xiaobo knew this person. But Lin Yi's identity was definitely not simple. From the attitude of Director Tian Lu Tianyi and Guan Xuemin towards Lin Yi was definitely not simple. And that so-called pill of life extension and toxin cleansing might be real as well. Perhaps it was some kind of rare treasure from somewhere, but Kong Ming Ming treated it like trash and stomped on it. Grandpa. Kong Ming Ming walked over carefully, his hatred for Kong Xiaobo deepening by another level. Why didn't you say so earlier that you got to know such a powerful boss? You've made a fool out of me. Go look for the cleaner just now and find that so-called pill of life extension and toxin cleansing he swept away. How could Dr. Kong not understand something that even Kong Xiaobo understood? He also felt that if the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was real, it would be a waste to throw it away. However, he couldn't let outsiders see it and lose face, so he reminded, "Be careful, don't let others see it." Got it, Grandpa. Kong Ming Ming saw that there was still a chance to salvage the situation, so he quickly nodded and followed his grandfather's instructions. Kong Ming Ming quickly walked out of the banquet hall when no one was paying attention. In reality, he was like an insignificant clown, so no one paid any attention to him. As soon as Kong Ming Ming walked out of the banquet hall, he bumped into the cleaner who had just been cleaning. He quickly ran over. "Auntie, can I ask you something? Where did you throw the rubbish you just swept away?" Kong Ming Ming had a favor to ask of the cleaner, so he had to change his attitude. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done this under normal circumstances. The rubbish bin outside, but before the cleaner could finish her sentence, Kong Ming Ming turned and ran. The cleaner shook her head. She wanted to remind him that there was still a fat man snatching the rubbish from the rubbish bin. But Kong Ming Ming was too anxious and didn't hear the latter part of her sentence. Kong Ming Ming was afraid that the rubbish in the rubbish bin had been taken away, so after hearing the cleaner's words, he quickly ran out. When he reached the entrance of the banquet hall, he saw an open rubbish bag beside the rubbish bin. Kong Ming Ming was shocked. It couldn't have been stolen, right? But then he remembered that near hotels and resorts, there were always people who liked to scavenge through rubbish bins to pick out drinks and bottles that could be sold for money. No one should know what that lousy pill was, right? However, Kong Ming Ming didn't dare to delay. He quickly ran over and picked up the rubbish bag, then rummaged through it. Chapter 381. Finally found Ida wave of stench assaulted Kong Ming Ming's face. Kong Ming Ming nearly puked. What the hell is this thing? Why is it so smelly? Kong Ming Ming had thought that it was the stench of the trash bag in his hand, so he quickly tossed it aside and stood up. But it was still smelly after he stood up. Kong Ming Ming looked around and realized that the stench was coming from the pill in his hand. Why does this pill smell like this? Kong Ming Ming's stomach churned. Wasn't this a little too smelly? Had it been like this before? But Kong Ming Ming thought about it for a long time and couldn't figure out if the pill had been smelly or not when he'd stepped on it. He'd been too excited at the time, and he'd only been focused on mocking Kong Xiaobo. How could he have had the time to care about whether the pill smelled good or bad? That's probably it. Kong Ming Ming nodded in self-consolation. The color of the dog poop was just too similar to the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Kong Ming Ming had only taken a look at it in his hand before stepping on it, so he couldn't remember the color. Kong Ming Ming hurriedly and carefully held the dog poop in his hand. After making sure that no one was paying attention, he carefully ran back into the banquet hall. As soon as he entered, he saw his grandfather, Dr. Kang's inquiring gaze. Kong Ming Ming quickly nodded to him, indicating that he'd found the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Dr. Kong breathed a sigh of relief. If it really was a treasure, then it would have been a waste to throw it away. He had to give Lu Tianyi a call tonight to see if there really was such a thing. Lu Tianyi wanted to invite Lin Yi to sit in his car, but when he saw that Lin Yi drove his own car, he had to give up. Lin Yi drove Tang Yin, Kong Xiaobo, Xiao Fun, and Guan Xuemin back to Songshan. He sent Tang Yin back to the hospital and Xiao Fun back home before bringing Kong Xiaobo to Guan Xuemin's house for a discussion. Kong Xiaobo originally wanted to accompany Xiao Fun. He was afraid that Xiao Fun would be in a bad mood after seeing Kong Mingming today. But when Xiao Fun heard Lin Yi calling Kong Xiaobo for something important, why would she waste his time? He shook his head at Kong Xiaobo and smiled. Xiaobo, Brother Lin Yi is looking for you for something serious. You don't have to accompany me, I'm fine. I'm feeling much better now. Are you really fine? Kong Xiaobo was still worried. After all, he was hurt so deeply by Kong Mingming. How could he be fine just like that? Haha, I'm waiting for you to take revenge for me one day. Xiao Fun smiled. I'll remember what you said today. All right, wait for me. I'll definitely do it. Kong Xiaobo clenched his fist. Lin Yi smiled. He gave Kong Xiaobo a stage to show off, but he needed Kong Xiaobo to be willing. If Kong Xiaobo was sloppy, even if he became his spokesperson, he would only be a role to supervise others. But if he was filled with fighting spirit, it would be different. As long as he had the intention, he would work hard and succeed sooner or later. As long as he had the confidence and dreams, he would definitely achieve it. Tang Yin, I won't be going up. Grandpa, Guan already told me about your father's surgery. I can't do anything about the bone problem, but after he's done with the surgery, I have some medicine that can quickly heal his wound. Lin Yi said to Tang Yin when she was about to get off the car, I'll send it to you on Monday. I didn't bring it with me today. Thank you. Tang Yin nodded and didn't refuse. She didn't know when it started, but she gradually got used to Lin Yi's care and care for her. After Tang Yin got off the car, Kong Xiaobo couldn't help but ask, Boss, are you talking about the medicine similar to my second grandpa's Golden Creation medicine? In the market. Only Dr. Kang's Golden Creation medicine could quickly heal a wound. No wonder Kong Xiaobo was surprised. He didn't expect Lin Yi to have this kind of medicine in his hands. Haha, it should be similar. I haven't seen his formula before, so I can't say for sure, but the effect should be similar. Lin Yi nodded. Kong Xiaobo was shocked. At this moment, he finally understood why Lin Yi was so confident in supporting him to break with Kong Mingming and his second grandpa's family. When Lin Yi said that he could let him be on the same level as his second grandpa, Kong Xiaobo didn't really believe it, but for the sake of his face, he said it boldly. At first, Kong Xiaobo was a little nervous, not knowing if his bold words would become a joke. But now he knew that it wouldn't. If Lin Yi also had a formula similar to Golden Creation, then he was completely qualified to be on the same level as his second grandpa. Dr. Kang's medical company only made money from Golden Creation. Boss, you are really amazing. Where did you get the formula? My second grandpa hid the formula so well that even my grandpa didn't know. Kong Xiaobo said and sighed. My grandpa is also stupid. He didn't know where the formula was. And my second grandpa stole it. I made it myself. Lin Yi shrugged. Kong Xiaobo was going to be his spokesperson soon, so it was fine to let him know some core secrets. You made it yourself? Kong Xiaobo was so shocked that his eyes widened. Lin Yi can make such a formula himself? How amazing is that? All right, it's good that you know. Don't tell anyone. Lin Yi patted Kong Xiaobo's shoulder. I have some personal reasons, and I don't want to stand out. So, this company belongs to you, and Grandpa Guan to the outside world. Don't worry, boss. I won't tell anyone. When Kong Xiaobo heard that Lin Yi trusted him as a spokesperson, he was immediately touched. He nodded and said, Xiaofin, and I won't tell anyone. This can be said. Lin Yi sweated. Xiaofin's leg. I have to solve it sooner or later, so it's fine to tell her. It's fine as long as a small group of people know. Boss, I just realized that the wisest decision I've ever made in my life was that day when I decided to help you fight on the rooftop. Xiaobo sighed. You wouldn't be taking care of me like this if I hadn't done it on impulse. Kong Xiaobo still had some self-awareness. He knew that he was useless. In Lin Yi's eyes, he couldn't help at all. If there was something that could make Lin Yi look up to him, it was that time. However, what Kong Xiaobo said was really true. It was indeed because Kong Xiaobo could stand out in a hot-headed manner that Lin Yi regarded Kong Xiaobo as a brother. Chapter 382. Go call and ask with the incident with Kong Xiaobo and Kong Mingming's incident. Dr. Kang's birthday banquet ended hastily at noon. The atmosphere was good, but there was an indescribable sense of oppression. It was the same for both the host and the guests. Dr. Kong didn't give Kong Xiaobo's parents a good look. Kong Xiaobo's parents couldn't do anything about it. While Kong Xiaobo's incident had caused quite a commotion, Kong Xiaobo's parents knew that it wasn't Kong Xiaobo's fault. Kong Xiaobo had given his second grandpa a huge gift, a precious pill. It was done out of kindness, but Kong Mingming didn't appreciate it and crushed the pill without any hesitation. And Dr. Kong didn't stop him after seeing it. That was the problem. Miracle Dr. Kong, from the bottom of his heart, felt a great distance between Xiaoming and Xiaobo, his own grandson, and his cousin. No matter how much Kong Mingming had gone overboard, he was still his grandson. He could tolerate it, but Kong Xiaobo hadn't done anything wrong yet. He only suspected that Kong Xiaobo had brought a fake pill to take advantage of his title as a miracle doctor, and yet he allowed Kong Mingming to do something so disrespectful. Even if Kong Mingming's words were a little overboard, it was understandable. He was a boy, after all, and it was impossible for him to not be impulsive. So, Kong Xiaobo's parents were very understanding. What made them happier was that Kong Xiaobo's good friend seemed to be very powerful. So many big shots knew him and were very friendly to him. That meant that Kong Xiaobo wouldn't be at a disadvantage if he followed him. So, even though Kong Xiaobo's parents were treated coldly and disdainfully by Dr. Kang's family, they still felt a little comforted. Dr. Kang's family didn't like them, either. After the banquet, Kong Xiaobo's parents left without even greeting them. It was clear that Dr. Kang's family was furious about the humiliation earlier. If you ask me, what kind of relatives do you have? It's fine if they don't help us after they become rich, and we don't mind that. But what's the meaning of this? Kong Mu wasn't a member of the Kong family and was extremely displeased by what happened today. Don't talk to relatives like this. Forget it. If it wasn't for Dad asking me to come, I wouldn't have come. Father Kong smiled bitterly. But your son really made my second uncle lose face today. My son? Isn't he your son? Kong Mu couldn't help but be proud when she mentioned her son. You see how loyal my son's friends are. They aren't even relatives yet, but they can speak up for him. They also know many powerful big shots. Look at your cousins. What are they? Right, the girl that my son pulled today. Why is she a little lame? And what Kong Mingming said. Kung Fu was a little embarrassed. He didn't want to talk about his family anymore. No matter what, he was the second uncle who was related by blood. He was an elder. At the very least, it was his father who went to punish him. He couldn't say much. I saw it too. Kong Mu was also a little worried. Xiaobo said those words today. Does he really like that girl? It seems that he deliberately stood up for her. I think so too. Kung Fu nodded. What should we do? Not to mention this kid's puppy love. He even found a lame girl? I don't know what this kid is thinking. Yeah, why don't we go home and talk to our son? Don't tell me he was fooled by that girl in the spur of the moment. Kong Mu was even more worried when she heard it. Say what? Kung Fu snorted helplessly. Your son was fooled? I don't think so. Oh? What do you mean? Kong Mu was slightly stunned. Think about it. Kong Xiaobo is impulsive, but is his good friend an impulsive person? I think this incident was most likely planned by him. He came to stand up for the girl named Xiaofan. Kung Fu understood. This person's family background isn't ordinary. You see, Lu Tianyi and Guan Shuimi know him, and the owner of the resort. So, I think he supports Kong Xiaobo to be together with that girl. As for why, I can't say it now. It's just a guess. Now that you put it that way, I think it's true. Kong Mu also came to a sudden realization. No matter what, let's go home and ask Xiaobo. Donghai City, Ocean View Villa District. Inside a luxurious villa, the Kong family was gathered in the living room. Dr. Kong Lai Kai sat in the main seat, looking at his children and grandchildren standing carefully in the room with a dark face. Xiaoming, where's that pill of life extension and toxin cleansing? Dr. Kong looked at Kong Mingming and asked. Kong Mingming was panicking. He carefully took out the dog poop and presented it to Dr. Kong with both hands. Grandpa, the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing is here. Dr. Kong nodded and used his hand to pick up the dark brown object in Kong Mingming's hand. He was about to take a closer look when a stench assaulted his face. Dr. Kong almost vomited. What's that smell? Why is it so smelly? Grandpa, this is the smell of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. I was choked by it too. Kong Mingming explained carefully. It's not a scam, is it? Dr. Kong frowned. I don't think that kid is very reliable. Guifeng, aren't you on good terms with Lu Tianyi? I think Lu Tianyi seems to be very close with that kid today. Go ask him about it. Dr. Kong wasn't very happy when he said this. Lu Tianyi had come to attend his birthday banquet, but left halfway through. Although he was from House Lu, it was still a huge loss of face for Dr. Kong. As for Guan Shuimin, Dr. Kong didn't dare say anything. Guan Shuimin was already giving him face by coming. He knew very well what kind of miracle doctor he was. He was just a fake miracle doctor, while Guan Shuimin was the real deal. All right, I'll call and ask. Kong Guifeng nodded, took out his phone, and walked to the side to make the call. No one in the room said a word, while Kong Guifeng was on the phone. They waited quietly for the result. Hello? Brother Tianyi? I'm Kong Guifeng. Kong Guifeng still wanted to get on Lu Tianyi's good side. House Kang's business in Yanjing relied on the Lu's influence. At the end of the day, Dr. Kong only had a divine prescription. He wasn't a real miracle doctor, so there was no need for these big families to curry favor with them. On the other hand, Dr. Kang's family had to curry favor with these big families for the sake of development. In the eyes of ordinary people, these big families were mysterious existences high above the masses. It wasn't easy for them to even buy a bottle of golden creation, but to these big families, they could buy as much as they wanted. They didn't have to worry about not having enough. Chapter 383. See the results. Oh, it's you, Guifeng bro. I had something urgent to attend to today, so I had to leave at the last minute. I'm very sorry about that, Lu Tianyi said, but he didn't have any intention of apologizing at all. Kong Guifeng was a little displeased, but there was nothing he could do about it. After all, he still had to rely on Lu Tianyi for his military medicine orders. Haha, it's fine, it's fine. Kong Guifeng, however, smiled nonchalantly. Right, Brother Tianyi, let me ask you something. Do you know my nephew's classmate today? Oh, you're talking about Mr. Lin? Of course I know him. Lu Tianyi laughed. Oh, his family. Kong Guifeng wanted to talk about Lin Yi's background. Haha, he's amazing, isn't he? I say, Brother Guifeng, why are you asking this? Lu Tianyi asked faintly. It's nothing. I'm just curious about the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing he gave me today. Brother Tianyi, you seem to know a bit about it? Kong Guifeng probed. That? Haha, it's a good thing. Lu Tianyi could more or less guess what Lin Yi was trying to say. He wanted Dr. Kang's family to regret it, so he didn't mind revealing something that would make them regret it. But he wouldn't say a word about the real thing. Good thing? Does that mean you know something about it, Brother Tianny? Kong Guifeng's heart skipped a beat. There was no need for Lu Tianny to lie to him about something like this. Who was Lu Tianny? He was a member of the Lius. Even if he was close to Lin Yi, there was no way he'd help Lin Yi lie was there. And so, Kong Guifeng had a vague feeling that the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing really was a good thing. Of course, while Kong Guifeng didn't think he was wrong, his guess was a bit off. If Lin Yi had asked Lu Tianny to lie for him, Lu Tianny would have nodded without hesitation. Haha, let's not talk about that. I can't talk about that. Lu Tianny laughed again. Right, Brother Guifeng. I'm going back to send the old man back to Yanjing. Tianny, brother, Elder Lu, isn't he here to see Miracle Doctor? Why did you go back? Guifeng paused. Haha, he's feeling better now. I even got him a courtyard house to grow vegetables in, Tianny said with a smile. It's done? Guifeng was shocked. Didn't Miracle Dr. Guan say that only long-term acupuncture would work? Hee, how could I use the old man's body as a joke? If not, I wouldn't dare to send him back. Lu Tianny smiled and said, well, let's not talk about this first. The old man asked me to accompany him to dance on the dance carpet. Kong Guifeng almost thought that there was something wrong with his ears. Dance on the dance mat? Old Lu Jinhu could still play on a dance mat? Even walking would be a problem, right? However, before Kong Guifeng could ask, the phone was hung up. Kong Guifeng sighed and walked back with a gloomy face. How is it? Dr. Kong saw that his son's complexion was a little abnormal, and his heart tightened as he asked hurriedly, I didn't get any answers, but it seems like it's really something good. Kong Guifeng said in a deep voice, but I got an important piece of news. Lu Tianny's father, Elder Lu, has miraculously recovered and can even play on the dance carpet. What? Dr. Kang's heart almost exploded when he heard his son's words. You're saying that 90-year-old man can play on the dance mat? Really? Dr. Kong had seen Jinhu's condition before. He was so sick that even walking was difficult, but now he could play on the dance mat? His eyebrows twitched as a bad thought crossed his mind. Could it have something to do with the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing? I'm guessing, so there's an 80% chance that it's related. Why else would that old fox, Lu Tianny, bring this up all of a sudden? Kong Guifeng nodded. That pill of life extension and toxin cleansing might really be something good. I just don't know where Kong Xiaobo's friend got it from. That guy looks like the son of a rich family, so it's not surprising that he could get his hands on some rare items. But this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, is it really the real deal? Dr. Kong picked up the dog poop in his hand in disbelief. How can it work when it's so smelly? Grandpa, as the saying goes, good medicine tastes bitter. I don't think there's any truth to that. Kong Mingming had thought of this before, so he decided to show it off now. He wanted to make up for his mistake, so he tried his best to make himself seem more important. Xiaoming's right. Good medicine tastes bitter. Dr. Kong nodded in agreement. But what you hear from others is just hearsay. You have to verify it yourself to see it for yourself. Grandpa, you mean? Kong Mingming asked. How about this? Cut this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing in half, then swallow it. See if it has any effects. Dr. Kong hesitated for a moment before speaking to Kong Mingming. Ah, me. Kong Mingming thought his grandpa was going to take it himself. He didn't expect it to be him. Why? You don't want to live longer? Dr. Kong glanced at Kong Mingming. Dr. Kong didn't dare to take it himself. After all, he was old and couldn't handle the torment. But Kong Mingming was fine. It's not that Kong Xiaoming was a little timid. The pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was supposed to be a good item, but it was just a guess from his family. He didn't dare eat it without a definite conclusion. "You're afraid it's poisonous?" Miracle Dr. Kong humphed. "Idiot, no matter how stupid Xiaobo is. There's no way he'd send a poisoned pill over. That's murder in front of everyone's eyes. You'd have to spend eternity in jail. Even if this pill isn't the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, it won't have any side effects." "Ed, why don't I try it?" Kong Tsuepu hesitated for a moment before stepping forward. Kong Ming was his son. How could he let his son eat something so strange? In the Kong family, Elder Kong was the most important person. Big brother Kong Guifeng and nephew Kong Xiaolong were the most important. On the other hand, he and his son weren't as important. Something like this could only fall to him. The problem was that only the core members of the Kong family knew about this. They couldn't let outsiders try it. If word got out and the great Dr. Kang's family picked up the crushed pill and ate it, wouldn't they laugh their heads off? Chapter 384. Chapter 384. Unexpected call, let me do it. Kong Ming realized that his grandfather's words made sense. He'd been too cautious before, and now that he thought about it, Kong Xiaobo wouldn't send poison over unless he was an idiot. Sending poison was suicide. If something happened to Dr. Kang's family, he'd be the first suspect. And so, Kong Ming decided to try it himself. He couldn't let it spoil him even if he didn't like it. Letting his father eat it would only make his grandfather look down on him. Kong Xiaobo gritted his teeth and voiced his decision. Kong Ming's words surprised Dr. Kong a bit. He didn't think that this cowardly grandson of his would be willing to try the medicine on his own. Thus he said happily, "Good. Xiaoming, Grandpa didn't think that there would be a day when you'd grow up. Don't worry, once we figure out how to make this pill, I'll give you a share of the profits." Kong Ming was overjoyed. If this pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was a success, the profits wouldn't be any less than the golden creation. It was a great thing for him to be able to own a share of the company. In the third generation of House Kong, even the outstanding Kong Xiaolong didn't have a share. Kong Ming was overjoyed at the thought that he'd be the first. Kong Ming's father, Kong Tsuepu, was surprised by his son's courage and insight as well. He didn't think that his son's decision would bring him such great profits and benefits. Even Xiaolong was looking at his brother with jealousy. In House Kong, Kong Ming had always been a cowardly, hedonistic young master, so when he did bad things, everyone was used to it. Today, however, he'd suddenly done something sensible. It was a surprise. And so, in his surprise, Dr. Kong gave Kong Ming this promise. Kong Ming took the dog poop from Dr. Kang's hands and placed it on the table. He cut it open with a sharp knife and picked up half of it, preparing to swallow it. Ugh, it stinks. Kong Ming put it to his mouth, almost dying from disgust. Why does it taste the same as dog poop? It's like you said, good medicine tastes bitter. Kong Tsuepu advised. He was also very excited. If his son took the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing and had an effect, then he would be able to get a share of the company. As a father, he would also be proud. Kong Ming nodded and clenched his teeth. He pinched his nose and closed his eyes, sending half of the dog poop into his mouth. He quickly drank a few mouthfuls of water to suppress the urge to vomit. After a while, he finally caught his breath and let out a long sigh. Phew, I finally ate it. All right, Xiaoming, don't go out for the next few days. Stay at home and see the effects. Miracle Dr. Kong nodded, turning to Guifeng. Guifeng, seal up the other half of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. If the illumination works, send it to the lab and get the ingredients analyzed. Yes. Kong Guifeng nodded. Kong Mingming felt his stomach churn after eating the dog poop, but he endured the urge to vomit and went back to his room, lying on his bed. It had to be said that Kong Mingming was quite lucky. The half of the dog poop he took had some pill of life extension and toxin cleansing left on it. It wasn't completely dog poop. Lin naturally didn't know what happened at the Kangs. If he knew that Kong Mingming had picked up the dog poop as the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, and had even eaten half of it, he'd probably be laughing his head off. In Xiumin's house, Lin Yi told Kong Xiaobo about the medical company. But while Kong Xiaobo was excited, he was also worried. After all, he had no experience in business management. Though he didn't want to give up this great opportunity, Kong Xiaobo wasn't an idiot. He knew the consequences of messing around. "Boss, I don't know anything about business management. You have to let me learn." After the excitement, Kong Xiaobo regained his composure. He was an impulsive person, but after that he could calmly consider the problem. During the fight on the rooftop and Xiaofin's incident, Kong Xiaobo had displayed his impulsive personality. But after that he was able to calm down and consider the pros and cons. Kong Xiaobo's words put Lin Yi in a difficult position. Xiumin was a scholar, so he naturally didn't have any experience in business management. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't have any experience in assassination. Now, Kong Xiaobo's words weren't unreasonable. He didn't have any relevant experience either. At that moment, Lin Yi finally understood that some things were too simple. You couldn't start a company just because you had a prescription. However, Lin Yi didn't want him to participate in the operation of the company if he wasn't trustworthy. First of all, Lin Yi was a secret. Lin Yi didn't want to expose himself in front of the public and let everyone know that the prescription came from him. After all, Lin Yi was still in the middle of a mission. It wasn't appropriate for him to be distracted by other things. "Little E, my idea is to find a trustworthy professional manager. As for me, I mainly want to be a vice president in name or a director of research and development. I just need to cooperate with the publicity," Xiumin suggested. "As for the company, we can let Xiaobo and Xinxin be the company's directors. They will only participate in the decision-making and not the operation." "That's not a bad idea. The key is to find a trustworthy manager," Lin nodded. "But this person is not so easy to find. This is urgent." Xiumin shook his head. "I'll ask someone else." Just like that, the matter was temporarily put on hold. Lin Yi drove Kong Xiaobo out of Xiumin's villa. He wanted to send him home directly, but Kong Xiaobo said that he wanted to go to a bookstore to buy some business management books. Although it was a bit of a last-minute effort, Lin Yi was glad that Kong Xiaobo had the intention. He was afraid that Kong Xiaobo wouldn't work hard. As long as he was willing to work hard, everything would be fine. Lin Yi sent Xiaobo to the bookstore, but didn't go up with him. He went straight back to Mengyao's villa. It had been 2 days since he left, and he wondered if the miss was still mad at him. He'd told Mengyao that he'd be accompanying Xiaobo to his second grandpa's birthday banquet, and Mengyao hadn't said anything about it. But who knew if Yushu was trying to drive a wedge between them? When he was almost home, Lin Yi's phone rang. He thought it was Kong Xiaobo or Tang Yin, but when he saw the caller ID, he couldn't help but freeze. Chapter 385. Chapter 385. Wang Xinyan's family. Lin Yi paused. Wasn't Wang Xinyan supposed to go to Yanjing to take care of the funeral? Why was she calling him? Was she back already? It couldn't be. How many days had it been? It hadn't even been a week. Lin Yi was a bit confused, but he picked up anyway. "Hello," but when he picked up the phone, the call was cut off. What was the meaning of this? Did she call the wrong number? Or was it something else? Lin Yi hesitated for a moment before calling back. It was the first time Xinyan had called him, after all, and he couldn't just ignore it. "I'm sorry, the number you have dialed is either powered off or out of service. Please try again later," The robotic voice told Lin that the other party's phone had been turned off. Lin frowned. Could it be that Xinyan was about to call him, and her phone ran out of battery? Lin shook his head and put the phone back in his pocket. There was nothing Lin could do if he couldn't reach her. He was a little worried, but the two were strangers who'd met by chance, and Xinyan was far away in Yanjing. Lin didn't even know where she was. In a luxurious mansion in Yanjing, a man with a fierce look on his face snatched Xinyan's phone from her hands and smashed it on the ground, stomping on it a couple of times. "Stupid girl, are you trying to call someone over? I didn't think you'd have a phone on you. Good thing I didn't go too far to keep an eye on you. IDV ruined everything." Xinyan looked at the phone that had been stomped on and raised her head coldly. "I'm your cousin, and this is how you're going to treat me." "Cousin? Humph. Spit out the Shao family's assets first." The man humphed. "Grandpa's married you off to someone else in his will. Don't even think about leaving this room before he comes with a betrothal gift." After saying that, the man closed the door with a bang, and then the sound of the door being locked could be heard. Xinyan sighed helplessly. She wouldn't have come back if she'd known that the Shao family was in such dire straits. Not only were her parents under house arrest, but she herself was engaged to a man she didn't even know because of her grandfather's will. It wasn't until she arrived at the Shao family that Xinyan realized that the Shao family wasn't as glamorous as it looked on the outside. The two uncles were fighting over the inheritance, but the Shao family was already strong on the outside. His grandfather had Alzheimer's disease. In the last few years of his life, he signed a few stupid contracts. Not only did he cause the company to lose a lot of money, but he also owed a lot of debt. Even if he sold the company now, it would be enough to pay off the debt. The two uncles, who were originally fighting over the family property, surprisingly united again after finding out the amount of the family property. Now that he couldn't even pay his debts, how could he snatch the family's property? What property was there to fight over? All that was left were the properties that Elder Shao had bought when he was still alive, but the number of properties could be counted with one's fingers. There wasn't much point in fighting over it, so they could just split it evenly. In the eyes of ordinary people, these villas and properties were already worth thousands of dollars. They could live a well-off life just by relying on the rent. However, for the two Shao brothers who were used to living a lavish life, it was unbearable. And so, they turned their attention to their sister, Wang Xinyan's mother, Shao Qinlin, who had left home for many years. Their reason was simple and shameless. Elder Shao had given them 50,000 kuai for travel expenses when Qinlin ran away from home to elope with Wang Xinyan's father, Wang Shubin. This 50,000 kuai was said to be Wang Shubin's investment in his company, and now they wanted him to pay it back with interest. Of course, other than Elder Zhao's will, the Shao brothers also had a promissory note written by Qinlin all those years ago. Back then, old man Shao had given Shao Qinlin 50,000 yuan for the sake of his daughter, even though Shao Qinlin had broken up with her family and eloped with Wang Shubin. No matter what, she was still his daughter, and he couldn't treat her badly. But Qinlin had let her emotions get the better of her. Since she had broken off with the Shao family, she naturally wouldn't take the Shao family's money for free. She had written a promissory note to Elder Shao, saying that she'd pay it back with interest when she became rich. Elder Shao didn't expect his daughter to pay it back, either. He merely laughed it off and told his eldest son, Shao Ji, to throw the note away. Shao Ji, however, was careful and hid the note. After Elder Zhao's death, the note became evidence that the Shao brothers were trying to blackmail Qinlin. With the note and Elder Zhao's will, there was nothing Qinlin could do, no matter how angry she was. Who told her to write that note all those years ago? Of course, that wasn't the most infuriating thing. The most infuriating thing was that Elder Shao had found a husband for Xinyan in his will. Wasn't it a little too early for a 12th grader to get engaged? The Shao brothers were very cocky, saying that if Qinlin didn't hand over the 20% of their company's shares, they'd see it in court. They'd let the public see that Elder Zhao's daughter didn't care about his body after his death, and was even trying to steal her brother's assets. In all honesty, who was the one trying to steal whose assets? Qin Lin had decided to break off with her family for love, but she was still a filial person. She wouldn't have been able to put down everything she had on hand to handle Elder Zhao's funeral otherwise. Naturally, Lin Yi didn't know what was going on with the Xiao family, but even if he did know, he wouldn't know how to intervene. Family matters like this were the hardest to solve. Lin Yi returned to the villa to see Meng Yao and Yushu digging something in the yard, each holding a small shovel. Yushu's face was covered in dirt, and Meng Yao's clothes were a little dusty, but her face wasn't as bad as Yushu's. Lin Yi parked the car in the yard and got out. He looked at the two, curiously. Yao, Yao, Shu, what are you guys doing? Oh, Shield bro, you're back? We're digging for treasure. Come help me, and Yao Yao. We're so tired. Yushu waved happily at Lin Yi when he came back. Shu, what did you call him for? Meng Yao glared at Yushu and lowered her voice. What if he sees us? Don't you feel embarrassed? Chapter 386. Treasure hunt in the yard, yeah. Meng Yao couldn't help but feel tempted by Yushu's words. It was true that the key was in Shu's hands, and Lin Yi wouldn't be able to open the chest even if he managed to dig it out. Maybe we should let him try while we rest? I'm a little tired. What about you? I'm a little tired too. Let's get Shield Bro to try then? Yushu wouldn't have been so happy to see him come back if she wasn't tired, calling him over so urgently. Yeah, you call him then. Meng Yao nodded. We don't know when we'll find it if we keep digging like this. That's right. We don't even know where it's buried. The map we drew when we were kids isn't working at all. Yushu wiped the sweat off her forehead, and a few more mud marks appeared. You're still talking about it? Look at that stupid map you drew. It'd be a miracle if we could find it. Meng Yao waved the map in her hand. I said it'd be fine. I'd be able to find it, my ass. All right, Yao Yao, let's not talk about me. I was only 8 years old back then. It's already pretty good that I could draw something like this. Yushu took the map back embarrassedly before pulling on Meng Yao's arm. Don't touch me. Ah, Meng Yao realized that Yushu had left a few mud marks on her arm. What's up? Lin Yi locked the car door and walked over to see Yushu and Meng Yao whispering to each other. He didn't know what they were talking about. Lin Yi, help us dig for treasure, Meng Yao said as she handed the Luoyang shovel to Lin Yi. Dig for treasure? Lin Yi's eyes went wide as he rubbed his ears, wondering if there was something wrong with his hearing. Where? Over here. Yushu pointed at the ground in the yard. In the villa's yard? Lin Yi blinked. You're not kidding, are you? How could there be treasure in this villa's yard? Did you two watch too many movies? This villa was only built about 10 years ago. How could there be treasures? Of course Yushu was about to say, we buried it, when Meng Yao stopped her. If we say there is, then there must be. Meng Yao glared at Yushu. She couldn't tell Lin Yi that they were the ones who buried the treasure. What if Lin Yi dug it out and took a peek? All right. Lin Yi looked at the two girls' strange expressions and could only nod. Anyway, if the miss asked him to dig, he would dig. It didn't take much effort. Where should we dig? It's in this courtyard. Dig as you see fit. Other than the Luoyang shovel, Meng Yao also had some simple pickaxes and ropes. Shield Bro, here's another treasure map, Yushu said as she handed the treasure map she drew when she was young to Lin Yi. Take a look at it. Okay. Lin Yi nodded as he took the map and got to work. Meng Yao rolled her eyes at Yushu helplessly and pulled her a few steps away. Are you stupid? How could you give that map to Lin Yi? Oh, it's fine. I'm the one who's embarrassed. I drew it. Yushu didn't care at all. I thought it'd be easier for him to find it with a map. He'd have no clue at all. You're the one who's embarrassed, yes, but giving Lin Yi a treasure map. Isn't that telling him that we're the ones who buried the treasure? Meng Yao said helplessly. What if he sees what's in there? Can you afford to lose face like that? I can you? Yushu nodded. Meng Yao wanted to stomp Yushu to death. You can, but I can't. It's fine, Yao Yao. Don't forget that we have the key. Yushu waved the key in her hand. All right. Meng Yao didn't have a choice. She couldn't just ask for the map back, could she? Yao Yao, don't think so much. Shield Bro isn't the type to peep into other people's privacy. He wouldn't open it if he saw a lock. Yushu comforted. Meng Yao nodded. Indeed, Lin Yi didn't seem to be the type to peep into other people's privacy. She and Shu lived upstairs, but Lin Yi hadn't gone up even once. Leaving General Weiwu, there seemed to be an unnecessary move. Meng Yao and Yushu went back to the villa to rest. They'd been digging for a long time. They'd been digging for the whole afternoon yesterday, starting right after Lin Yi left. Today, they'd been digging for the whole day. Both of them were covered in sweat and dirt. Yushu was in a worse state, with mud marks all over her face. The first thing they did was to rush to the bathroom on the second floor to take a shower and change their clothes. Lin Yi waited for the two to leave before picking up the map Yushu gave him. He almost fell to the ground when he saw it. Was this a map? Was there anyone more retarded than this? On the map, there was a drawing of a dog. From the looks of it, it should be a smaller version of General Weiwu. Maybe it was the dog's younger self? Next to General Weiwu was a sandbag, and opposite the sandbag were two school bags. The location of the treasure was in the middle of these three things. Triangulation was quite accurate. But where would Lin Yi find these things now? General Weiwu was alive, and it could move. The sandbag had been tossed thousands of miles away, and these two school bags should be Meng Yao and Yushu's, right? Maybe they were broken and thrown away. Lin Yi was speechless. Only Yushu could draw a treasure map like this. It was too awesome. No wonder they couldn't find anything even with the map. It was as good as not having it. Young Miss had really arranged a difficult task for him. Lin Yi frowned as he looked at the treasure map. He didn't move immediately. Lin Yi didn't have the time to turn every inch of the yard upside down. He had to think of a shortcut. Lin Yi threw away the Luo Yang shovel in his hand. He didn't know where these two girls got such a rare thing. Did they watch too many TV dramas? They weren't going to rob a grave. So why did they get a Luo Yang shovel? A shovel was more than enough to dig in one's own yard. Of course. Lin Yi didn't know that this Luo Yang shovel was obtained by Faubert after a lot of effort. The miss called him to ask for a Luo Yang shovel. Faubert asked her what she was going to do, and she said she was digging for treasure. Faubert didn't dare to ask too much. What if it was a secret? So he used his connections and finally got a Luo Yang shovel. Chapter 387. You come here. You come here. Lin Yi made a hand signal to General Weiwu. He wasn't sure if General Weiwu could understand it, but Lin Yi's hand signal could only be understood by a trained hound. But General Weiwu seemed to be very smart, and it was trained as well. Lin Yi's hand signal made it run over immediately. General Weiwu was afraid of Lin Yi, but it didn't dare to show it. It could only pretend to be happy. It felt like Lin Yi was going to kill it and eat it at any time. Lin Yi brought General Weiwu to the yard, and without a word he placed the treasure map Yushu drew in front of General Weiwu. He pointed at the map and smiled coldly. General Weiwu felt a chill from the bottom of its heart, and its fur stood up. The feeling of being killed and eaten was even worse. But General Weiwu didn't dare to run away. It was sure that if it ran, Lin Yi would be able to catch up to it, and its ending would be even worse. And so General Weiwu looked at the treasure map in Lin Yi's hand nervously. It felt familiar, and it understood what Lin meant. He had to admit that this dog was quite smart. Lin Yi saw that General Weiwu understood him, and he didn't say anything else. He just sat there and played with the Luoyang shovel. General Weiwu was sweating profusely, afraid that if Lin Yi didn't like it, he would chop off its head with the shovel. It quickly got up and started to search the yard. Of course, it didn't dare to walk too fast in order to not let Lin Yi misunderstand. What if Lin Yi misunderstood and thought that it was running away? General Weiwu's action surprised Lin Yi as well. This dog wasn't as simple as it seemed. It really understood what he meant. It even knew his threat. Was it a transmigrator? However, General Weiwu quickly stopped at a spot and used its claws to dig the soil. Then it called out to Lin Yi. Lin Yi nodded. He just wanted to give it a try, but he didn't expect General Weiwu to be so helpful. He found it so quickly. Lin Yi used the Luoyang shovel in his hand to dig. Not long after, there was a crisp ding sound. Lin Yi was a little surprised. He didn't expect to find it so easily. Satisfied, Lin Yi nodded at General Weiwu, signaling it to go back. Then, Lin Yi dug out the treasure chest. The surface of the treasure chest was covered in rust. Although it could be seen that it was a very good iron chest, it had been corroded for too long. There was also a small lock on top of it, but it had been corroded to the point that it was broken. It was useless. When was this buried? Meng Yao and Yushu couldn't have buried it, could they? Thinking about the treasure map, it was possible. Lin Yi was a little speechless as he opened the treasure chest. If there was a lock on top of the treasure chest, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't break the lock, but now that the lock was broken, Lin Yi naturally opened the treasure chest. Inside the treasure chest was an oiled paper bag. Although the outside of the treasure chest was covered in rust, and even the lock on top of the treasure chest was corroded and broken, the inside of the treasure chest was well made. It had a waterproof layer and rubber pad, and after so many years it was only a little wet. The oiled paper inside didn't show any signs of corrosion. From the looks of it, the price of this treasure chest shouldn't be cheap. However, for the two young ladies it was nothing. Lin Yi took out the oiled paper bag and opened it casually. He realized that the layers inside were very tight. Not only was there oiled paper, there was also a plastic sheet. After opening the outer packaging, there were two small bags inside. Lin Yi was a little surprised. Was this the so-called treasure? Lin Yi was just about to open one of the sachets when he heard a sudden scream from behind, scaring Lin Yi so much that he almost dropped the sachet in his hand. Lin Yi turned around to see Meng Yao running towards him with a towel wrapped around her. The hem of the towel fluttered in the wind, revealing a pair of smooth, jade-like legs. Although he couldn't see it clearly, Lin Yi couldn't help but gulp down a mouthful of saliva. Meng Yao's body was tall and well-proportioned. Although she wasn't as voluptuous as Yushu, her figure was still 1 in 100. Lin Yi wouldn't take the initiative to peek at the miss, but there was no harm in looking at her when she was right in front of him. Meng Yao suddenly realized where Lin Yi was looking at. Her face reddened as she snatched the sachet from Lin Yi's hands. Shameless! She turned around and walked quickly back into the villa, but this time she didn't dare run. She walked fast, but she moved slowly with small, quick steps. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. It was over. He'd left a bad impression on the Mississippi. But, in all honesty, it was the miss who'd run away fast and let him see it. It wasn't like he'd seen it on his own accord. He went back to the living room, dejectedly. Meng Yao and Yushu were already upstairs. Lin Yi was a little speechless. He'd done something good, and now he'd ruined it? He was helping them dig for treasure, and they were calling him shameless. Man, peeping wasn't good either. After a while, Meng Yao and Yushu came down from upstairs. The two had already changed into tight pajamas, and Lin Yi couldn't see anything. But Lin Yi felt wronged. Meng Yao wore shorts sometimes. Didn't that expose even more of her body? He only felt that the hazy feeling was a little exciting, but he didn't see anything at all. Looking at Meng Yao's face, Lin Yi quickly sat down and pretended that it had nothing to do with him as he prepared to watch TV. Ahem. Meng Yao saw that the guy didn't seem to realize what he'd done. She got even angrier and glared at Lin Yi after coughing twice. It's the Mississippi. What's up? Lin Yi raised his head and looked at Meng Yao carefully, pretending that he'd just seen Meng Yao coming down the stairs. It couldn't be helped. It was his fault for peeping at her. Shield bro, Yao Yao's going to scold you. Be careful. Yushu winked at Lin Yi, but the solemn atmosphere disappeared with Yushu's interference. Meng Yao was about to explode. This Yushu was here to mess things up. This girl probably liked Lin Yi and was helping him out. But Lin Yi was too shameless. She had to give him a warning. And so, Meng Yao pretended not to hear Yushu's words. She stared at Lin Yi sternly. Lin Yi, do you know what a follower should do? Ugh, I know. I shouldn't look at things I shouldn't. Lin Yi nodded. Chapter 388. Chapter 388, Past Wishes, but I saw it by accident. It's not my fault. Lin, he said, feeling wronged. How could he be blamed for this? By accident? Who are you trying to fool? Meng Yao's eyes were wide open. There's a lock on the chest. How could you have seen it if you hadn't opened it? Wah. Lin Yi's eyes were wide open as well. Chest? You're talking about a chest? If it wasn't a chest, then what did you think it was? Meng Yao wasn't happy with Lin Yi's act. I thought you were talking about your thighs. Lin Yi said, sweating. Thighs. Meng Yao's face reddened. Don't change the topic. It was an accident. I'm talking about why you broke the lock on the chest. Don't you know that it's immoral to peek at someone else's privacy? Had it been someone else, Meng Yao would have thought that the lock might have been broken by someone else. But Lin Yi had pulled down the iron bars of the storeroom in the villa's backyard with ease, saving Yushu. Breaking a small lock was a piece of cake for Lin Yi. It wasn't her thighs. As long as it wasn't, Lin Yi let out a long sigh of relief. It seemed that Meng Yao wasn't going to pursue the matter any further, and that made Lin Yi feel relieved. As for the lock on the chest, Lin Yi didn't think much of it. I didn't break the lock. It's been corroded for years, and the chest can be opened directly. Really? Meng Yao blinked at Lin Yi's explanation. Really? You can go see for yourself if you don't believe me. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Ah. Meng Yao panicked after listening to Lin Yi's explanation. Lin Yi had no reason to lie to her. After all, he only needed to go out and take a look to know the result. Before Meng Yao could say anything, Yushu ran out and came back not long later with a broken lock in her hand. Yao Yao, look, it's really the lock that's corroded. It's not Shield Bro's doing. I told you before. Shield Bro isn't that kind of person. Little Shu, which side are you on? Meng Yao was a little pissed off at Yushu's words. Why don't you hide it and destroy the evidence? Oh, should I throw it away now? Yushu asked weakly. Meng Yao's face reddened when she realized that Lin Yi was still there. I'm just saying, I'm just joking. Come on, let's go upstairs. Okay. Yushu nodded and smiled at Lin Yi. Then she went upstairs with Meng Yao. Lin Yi didn't know what was going on. Was the meeting over just like that? The mist didn't want to cause trouble for him anymore. Lin Yi didn't think that things would end so easily. What a surprise. Shoo, you've made me lose face. You brainless girl, tell me, did you help Lin Yi on purpose? Meng Yao was very furious. After all this, it was all her fault. She wanted to yell at Lin Yi, but couldn't bring herself to do so. No, I'm just telling the truth. Yushu said innocently. Yao Yao, do you want me to lie? Didn't you always tell me that lying kids are bad? Meng Yao waved her hand helplessly when Yushu changed the topic. It's fine, let's go upstairs. Okay, I want to see what wishes I wrote when I was young. I forgot, Yushu said excitedly as she ran upstairs. Which of these 2 sachets is yours? Meng Yao asked as she looked at the 2 pouches in her hands. She couldn't tell who belonged to whom. It was way too long ago, or else she would have remembered where she buried it. I don't know. Let's open one each. It's been a long time anyway. We can see what wishes we made back then, Yushu said. All right then. Meng Yao nodded after some hesitation. She didn't want Yushu to find out about her secret. The girl wasn't very trustworthy. She'd probably spread the news to Lin the moment she found out. That'd be so embarrassing. But thinking about it, it was a long time ago, and she couldn't even remember what she'd written. Even if Lin found out, it was just a childhood fantasy and it didn't matter. And so Meng Yao and Yushu each picked up a pouch and opened it. The pouches were sewn together with thin thread, and the 2 of them weren't in the mood to open them bit by bit. Yushu, who couldn't wait any longer, took out a pair of scissors and cut off the thread before opening the pouch. Hee, I'll open it first and see whose it is, Yushu said with a smile. The paper was a little yellowed and the handwriting was old, but it was still very clear. My wish is to live with Shu for the rest of my life and be happy forever. This was evidently Meng Yao's handwriting, and Meng Yao listened to Yushu's words in surprise. She didn't think that she'd been this close with Shu since they were kids. Yao, I'm so touched. Yushu was a carefree person, but she couldn't help but feel touched when she read the contents of the paper. Her eyes reddened, and tears were about to fall. Now you know how good I am to you. Meng Yao took the scissors and opened the pouch in her hand. Needless to say, this was Yushu's. My wish is to marry Yao Yao and be with her for the rest of my life. Meng Yao's eyes widened after reading the contents of the paper. Yushu wanted to marry her? Was there something wrong with her? Was she a lesbian? Yushu paused as well. She didn't think that her wish would be this powerful. Yao, could it be that we were a pair of lesbians back then? Why else would our wishes be the same? Lesbians my ass. Meng Yao was speechless. What's the same? Far from it. If we're a pair of lesbians, it's you, not me. I'm writing that I want to live with you, that we can live together as sisters. Look at what you wrote. You want to marry me. You're the one with the problem. Chapter 389. Don't forget the video. Yushu was deep in thought, blushing when Meng Yao interrupted her. You're not thinking about something unhealthy again, are you? Nope. Yushu shook her head, her thoughts exposed. Then why are you blushing? Meng Yao didn't quite believe her. I just feel like my old wish is a little hard to fulfill. But I've decided to change it, Yushu said. I've decided to marry the same man with Yao Yao, so we can live together forever. Meng Yao sweated. Why do you still remember that wish? It was close to evening when an annoying visitor came to the villa. Lin Yi didn't think that Jiang Wen would have the balls to come knocking on his door again. Hadn't he been beaten up enough last time? But, looking at the smile on his face, Lin Yi almost thought that the guy had lost his memory after being beaten up. Brother Lin, I'm really sorry about last time. I didn't think we'd part on such bad terms after a meal. It's my fault I haven't been back to Songshan for years. I don't know the situation here. Never mind, let's not talk about last time. Are you free tonight? I have a few bros who admire you, Brother Lin, and want to have a few drinks with Brother Lin? Jiang Wen smiled at Lin Yi. Lin Yi looked at Jiang Wen oddly. This guy couldn't be thinking of ways to get back at him after what happened last time, could he? This guy was really impatient. He came to seek revenge so soon? Lin Yi turned to Meng Yao, asking for her opinion. Meng Yao, naturally, knew that Jiang Wen was up to no good. If this guy was an amnesiac, he wouldn't have forgotten that Lin Yi had just beaten him up, would he? The band-aid on his forehead was proof of that. Jiang Wen bro, is there something wrong with your heart? Yushu looked at Jiang Wen, surprised. Ah. Jiang Wen didn't know what to say. Shu, what are you talking about? I don't understand. It's nothing, I just think you're looking for trouble. Yushu didn't care about Jiang Wen's face at all. Jiang Wen was a little pissed at Yushu, but he didn't dare say anything. 1, he was worried about his image in front of Meng Yao, and 2, he really couldn't afford to piss off this girl. Yao Yao Mei Mei. Today I want to thank my savior. You don't mind lending me your bodyguard, right? Jiang Wen smiled as he looked at Meng Yao. He emphasized the word bodyguard on purpose, implying that he already knew that Lin Yi was his bodyguard. Meng Yao frowned. But the fact that Lin Yi was hired by her dad wasn't a secret. Many people in the company knew about it, and Jiang Wen wouldn't be able to hide it from him if he wanted to. She didn't want to make a fuss about Lin Yi. It's nighttime now. I can't control what he wants to do. Speaking of which, Meng Yao was still a little pissed off because of what happened in the afternoon. She couldn't vent her anger, so she was more than happy to see Jiang Wen cause trouble for Lin Yi. Although it was foreseeable that Jiang Wen would get beaten up again, Meng Yao didn't want Lin Yi to have it easy. She wanted him to do some work, and it'd help relieve some of the anger in her heart. Haha, Brother Lin, your boss has agreed to it. What do you think? Give me some face? Jiang Wen smiled as he looked at Lin Yi. All right, let's go then. Lin Yi nodded. Since Meng Yao had put it that way, he might as well go teach the kid a lesson. A shield had to have the awareness of a shield, after all. He couldn't just take his salary for free, could he? Let's go then, Mr. Lin. Jiang Wen was overjoyed when he heard that Lin Yi had agreed. Meng Yao and Lin Yi's guess was right. He was here to get back at Lin Yi today. Jiang Wen was pissed off after being tricked by Lin Yi last time, especially since the one who beat him up was Zihua, the person he was supposed to cooperate with. There was no way he could vent his anger. So if Jiang Wen didn't teach Lin Yi a lesson, the latter would think that he was a pushover. Of course, Jiang Wen couldn't do anything to Lin Yi in broad daylight. After all, he was inviting Lin Yi to dinner from Meng Yao's place. He couldn't be too obvious, or Meng Yao would think that he was petty. Jiang Wen's idea was that since Lin Yi had tricked him once, he'd tricked him once as well. He'd let Lin Yi suffer in silence. Lin Yi stood up and followed Jiang Wen out of the villa. When he reached the door, he heard Yushu calling him from behind. Shield bro video. Don't forget. Lin Yi nodded with a bitter smile. Jiang Wen, who was walking in front of him, almost fell to the ground. So Lin Yi had recorded him last time? Did Meng Yao see it too? Fuck. He'd make a fool of himself. No wonder Meng Yao was looking at the bandage on his forehead with a weird expression today. So she already knew about it. This Lin Yi. He'd make a fool of himself this time. But this time, he'd be the one making a fool of himself. Didn't Yushu want to record it? Fine, he'd fulfill his wish. He'd record it for her to see. With that thought, Jiang Wen calmed down a little. A smile appeared on his face as he acted like he didn't understand. Shu Lil sis, don't worry. I'll get a professional videographer to record the drinking competition later. Yushu didn't say anything. She only frowned as she waited for Lin Yi and Jiang Wen to leave the villa. Yao Yao. Jiang Wen seems pretty confident this time. Who knows? He looked pretty confident last time. Meng Yao curled her lips. Compared to Lin Yi, she hated Jiang Wen more. That's true. I hope Shield Bro can give us another surprise this time. Hee, I'd like to see how Jiang Wen gets unlucky this time. Yushu nodded. From Jiang Wen's words, Lin Yi could tell what he was planning. Drinking competition? Could it be that this guy wants to get me drunk and then do something? But getting himself drunk? Was that even possible? Lin Yi smiled faintly as he followed behind Jiang Wen. Mr. Lin, we're not going home until we're drunk. Let's not drive, okay? Otherwise, we won't be able to drive back. Jiang Wen was afraid that Lin Yi wouldn't drink so much if he drove. his plan would fail then. All right, we'll take your car then. Lin, he didn't mind. He could take a taxi back if he didn't drive. Chapter 390. No going home. We didn't get to enjoy ourselves last time. We made a small mistake. This time, we're going to enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Jiang Wen pointed at a black Rolls-Royce. Get in, please. Lin nodded and got in. The car started moving slowly after Jiang Wen got in. It seemed that Jiang Wen had already booked a hotel and was just waiting for Lin Yi's approval. The location this time was still Starlight Hotel, and it seemed that Jiang Wen could pick himself up from wherever he fell. The room was the same as last time, but there were a few more people here. Other than Tai Zhao, there was also the feminine-looking man from before, and a fatty who looked like a Methria Buddha. All three of them stood up when they saw Jiang Wen enter, evidently looking to Jiang Wen as their leader. Mr. Lin, you're here. Tai Zhao walked over and held Lin Yi's hand passionately, but there was a flash of venom in his eyes. He wasn't going to let that go so easily after getting beaten up by Jiang Wen and him. Haha, Su bro, what's wrong with your forehead? HM? I saw a band-aid on Bro's head as well. Don't tell me you two were playing headbutt and bumped into each other? Lin Yi had been with Yushu for a long time now, and his way of speaking was a bit like Yushu's. Lin Yi couldn't help but blush with embarrassment at his imaginations. He could imagine the two of them arching their backs and using all their strength to bump into each other. Tai Zhao sweated profusely, feeling even more pissed off. Who the hell would bump their heads into each other? Unless they were brainless. Why is there a band-aid on your head? Don't you know what's going on? But he was here to get Lin Yi to drink with him. This wasn't the time for a fight. Tai Zhao could only suppress his anger and smile. I bumped into the door by accident. Come, let's not talk about this. Please have a seat, Mr. Lin. Let me introduce you to these two brothers. Lin Yi nodded and sat down. Tai Zhao started introducing the feminine-looking man and the fatty Methria Buddha. The feminine-looking man was Gang Lu, and the fatty Methria Buddha was Tai Wei. Gong Lu's family was in the foreign trade business, and Tai Wei was Tai Zhao's cousin. I'm very happy to meet you today, Mr. Lin, Tai Wei said. Jiang Wen bro, I heard that you're Jiang Wen bro's savior. I'll call you Brother Lin since I'm a bit older than you are. Let's drink till we're drunk, shall we? All right. Lin nodded. Tai Wei paused. According to Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao's plan, Lin Yi wouldn't fall for it so easily and wouldn't go home until he was drunk. After all, who wouldn't go home until they were drunk with their enemies? And so Tai Wei had come up with a bunch of words to persuade Lin Yi, with Jiang Wen and Gang Lu helping out as well. Gang Lu was the strategist of the younger generation of House Su, and he had a pretty good brain and a belly full of bad ideas. He was the one who'd come up with the plan today. After a bit of planning, they decided to trip Lin Yi up in the drinking. It'd be best if they could get him into the hospital, but even if he couldn't, they'd still have to record him when he was drunk. But this was all a scheme, not a fight in the open. Meng Yao wouldn't say anything even if she found out about it, and Jiang Wen was quite confident. But Lin Yi's reaction was out of everyone's expectations. Lin Yi agreed to it without hesitation after Tai Wei's one sentence, leaving them a little dumbfounded. Tai Wei felt like there was a fishbone stuck in his throat, and he couldn't use the words he'd prepared at all. He'd wanted to wait for Lin Yi to reject him, and then give a long speech of reasoning and persuasion. But there was no need for that at all. Lin Yi smiled at everyone's shocked faces. Haha, you guys know that I'm the Miss Follower, and I don't get to drink at home usually, so I'm a little craving for it. As soon as Lin Yi's words left his mouth, everyone understood. So that was it. But it made sense. Lin Yi was Meng Yao's follower, hired by Peng Zhan. He couldn't be drinking all the time, could he? That wouldn't make sense. Naturally, Lin Yi wouldn't let go of such a rare opportunity like this. Everyone calmed down at Lin Yi's words. They'd thought that Lin Yi was playing some kind of trick, but it seemed like he'd really decided to get drunk. Ganglu, go get a few boxes of beer to quench our thirst, and then bring out the white wine, Jiang Wen ordered. Mixing beer and white wine was very easy to get drunk, and it was very harmful to the stomach as well. Too much of it could even cause gastric bleeding or perforation. One had to admit that Jiang Wen was a devious bastard, asking for a few boxes of beer to quench his thirst. But Jiang Wen's goal was to drink Lin Yi to death, and even if he couldn't, he'd get him drunk and do something for him. Lin Yi looked like he had some alcohol tolerance, but Jiang Wen wasn't worried at all. He, Tai Zhao, and Gang Lu were all experts in the art of alcohol. Which one of the 4 young masters of Songshan didn't have amazing alcohol tolerance? Gang Lu, the strategist, was even more so. He'd drink non-stop at home even if no one else was urging him to drink, and he'd chug down a bottle of white wine every time he was about to do something bad. How could an alcoholic like him be measured with common sense? Of course, if the 3 of them still couldn't get Lin Yi drunk, they still had another ace up their sleeve. Su Taiwei. This kid was a freak of the Su family. He was simply an alcoholic. Not only could he drink, but he was also proficient in all kinds of dangerous drinking methods. For example, he could drink red wine with Sprite, whiskey with iced black tea, beer with Coke, or he could drink red wine, white wine, and beer in turns. He could even drink to death. Others might die instantly after drinking these techniques. But Su Taiwei had grown up in a wine tank, and his father was in charge of the Su's winemaking business. He was basically an alcoholic tank. With a life-saving trump card like Su Taiwei, what did Jiang Wen have to fear? Soon, a couple of waiters came in with a few boxes of beer printed in English under Gonglu's lead, placing them on the floor. Lin Yi looked at them, a trace of anger flashing through his heart. Weren't these guys a little too much? The beer was of the highest alcohol content. If it weren't for his knowledge, he'd probably be in the hospital right now. Jiang Wen had said that he wanted to get a few boxes of beer to quench his thirst, but Gang Lu had ordered the waiters to bring in the high alcohol content tactical nuclear penguin. Chapter 391. Let's change to white, Mr. Lin, please. Jiang Wen took out a few cans of beer from the box and placed them on the table, turning to Lin Yi. It's summer soon, it's hot. Wanna have some beer to quench your thirst? Drinking beer right off the bat, I don't think you're interested. Lin Yi said, disinterestedly. You need to drink with a few people. It's not mineral water. What's there to quench your thirst for? Then let's drink together. Jiang Wen thought, wouldn't it be easy to drink with a few people? We'll drink with you. He raised his glass with that. Cheers to you. I'll drink. It's up to you if you want to. With that, Jiang Wen tilted his head back and downed the entire can of beer. The alcohol content of this beer wasn't low, but it wasn't much for a veteran like Jiang Wen. Jiang Wen's alcohol tolerance was quite high, and he could drink a few bottles of Mao Tai without a problem. Which of the 4 young masters of Songshan wasn't a big drinker? Plus, Jiang Wen had another ace up his sleeve today, Su Taiwei. All right, Lin Yi nodded, mimicking Jiang Wen's action as he tilted his head back and placed the empty bottle on the table. Brother Lin, you're a good drinker. Jiang Wen praised as he picked up the empty bottle from Lin Yi's table and placed it on the floor, replacing it with an opened can of beer. Jiang Wen wanted to check if Lin Yi had really drunk the beer in front of him, and calmed down after confirming that it was empty. Still, he mocked himself for thinking too much. This tactical nuclear penguin beer was rare, and he'd asked a friend to get it from abroad. A country bumpkin like Lin Yi must have thought that it was just some foreign alcohol, since foreign alcohol usually had a lower alcohol content. That was why he downed it in one gulp. But that was fine, too. let the country bumpkin drink as much as he wanted. Everyone would drink a can of beer with him, and then they'd serve white alcohol. It wouldn't take long for Lin E to end up in the hospital. This beer tastes good? I've never seen this before. Lin E pretended to be curious as he read the words printed on the outside of the beer. That's right. It's expensive wine. Taizao laughed heartily, afraid that Lin E would see the alcohol content on the bottle. Let's have another toast. Okay. Lin E nodded readily. Taizao and Lin E finished their cans of beer in one gulp, and Jiang Wen nodded to himself. He felt like he'd seen through Lin E now. The guy was just a country bumpkin, a little smart, but also a little greedy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come out every time he was asked to eat. The way Lin E was drinking made Jiang Wen understand. The kid probably hadn't had much of a drink before. Now that there was a chance, how could he let it go? Originally, he was still thinking about how to trick Lin E and let everyone at the table take turns toasting Lin E. But now, there was no need to trick him anymore. What happened next surprised Jiang Wen even more. Lin E and Taizao drank a can of beer at each other's mouth. They didn't seem to be sated anymore. They poured the empty cans into their mouths before putting them down reluctantly. Lin Yi's reaction was subtle, and he didn't say much, but Jiang Wen saw it all. He was getting happier and happier. Actually, the taste is just so-so. There's nothing special about it. Lin Yi said, faintly. Jiang Wen wanted to laugh out loud at Lin Yi's words. So, why would you drink so fast? Was it because you didn't want to owe me a favor after drinking? But Jiang Wen didn't say that. As far as he was concerned, it didn't matter, as long as Lin Yi was admitted to the hospital. Brother Lin, a toast to you as well. Gang Lu stood up and handed Lin Yi another can of beer. Thank you for what you did for Bro that day. You're welcome. Lin Yi couldn't hide his joy as he took the can of beer from Gang Lu and downed it in one gulp. Will tactic. How creative. Lin Yi was feeling a little disdainful. If it weren't for the fact that he still had to stay in Songshan, Lin Yi wouldn't mind throwing these pieces of trash out of the window. He'd let them experience what it felt like to be a Superman. But now, at least on the surface, Lin Yi wouldn't cause any trouble for him. As a result, Jiang Wen and his group's plan was to watch a show. Tai Wei came up after Gang Lu, went downstairs. But this time he had 4 cans of beer in his hands. He placed 2 in front of Lin Yi before opening the other 2. Brother, you saved Bro's life. That means you're my Wei Bro's savior. 1 can of beer isn't enough to express my sincerity, so I'll use 2. But Lin brothers, you can do as you please. Lin Yi knew what the guy was thinking with one look. He knew that the beer was up to this point, and that they wouldn't be taking turns to get Lin Yi drunk. He was the last one left, and he had to take advantage of this opportunity. If Wei Bro can do it, then I'll do it too. Lin Yi thought to himself, who called himself Wei Bro? Wasn't this guy a little too strong? And so, Lin Yi purposefully pronounced the word do it 4 times, echoing Wei Bro's name, Tai Wei. Naturally, could tell that Lin Yi was playing a trick, but he had to drink with Lin Yi, and so he pretended not to hear anything. All right, I'll drink first. 2 cans of beer went down Tai Wei's throat. As if he were drinking water, his face wasn't red, and his heart wasn't beating at all. On the other hand, it was the same for Lin Yi. Jiang Wen and Taizao looked at each other, a trace of shock in each other's eyes. It seemed like this Lin Yi kid had some alcohol tolerance. Thank goodness Tai Wei was here. Otherwise, they really wouldn't be able to do anything to Lin Yi. Seeing that this wasn't going to affect Lin Yi much, Jiang Wen gave Gang Lu a look, telling him to move on to the next step of the plan, skipping the beer part. The alcohol content of the beer wasn't low, but it was still a far cry from white wine. Instead of drinking a belly full of beer, they might as well switch it to white wine. What if Lin Yi drank too much beer? It wouldn't be worth it if they didn't drink white wine. Brother Lin, you're a good drinker. I'm impressed. Ganglu smiled. Looks like Brother Lin's a drinker as well. Why don't we switch to white wine? It'd be boring otherwise. Chapter 392. Into the Bottle. Ugh. Ganglu wasn't expecting Lin Yi to be this easygoing, pausing as he looked at Jiang Wen. Jiang Wen wasn't afraid at all. What was there to be afraid of with Tai Wei as his trump card? He was just worried that Lin Yi wouldn't drink it. As long as Lin Yi was willing to drink it, he wouldn't be afraid of dying from it. No wonder Brother Lin didn't drink much last time. He thought that red wine wasn't strong enough. Jiang Wen realized. No wonder Lin Yi wasn't happy last time. The guy was pissed that Jiang Wen didn't let him drink to his heart's content. Jiang Wen had been wondering why Lin Yi would do that to him. He had nothing against Lin Yi, so why would Lin Yi do that to him? Lin Yi was just Ming Yao's bodyguard, not her boyfriend. He was hired by Ping Zhan. All he had to do was take care of Ming Yao's safety. Why would he care if Jiang Wen pursued Ming Yao or not? It was even more impossible to say that it was an unintentional grudge from before. If it was, why would Lin Yi save him at the theme park? As a result, Jiang Wen couldn't understand why Lin Yi would do something like that to him. After thinking about it, this was the only reason. Lin Yi was here as his savior, and Jiang Wen didn't let him drink to his heart's content. Naturally, Lin Yi would be angry, and so he vented a little. What happened last time, on the other hand, was quite a coincidence. Lin Yi didn't know that Sihua was here, and he didn't know that Jiang Wen was going to call him miss. It had all happened out of the blue, and there was nothing planned about it. The more it was like this, the more it proved that Lin Yi didn't want to mess with him at all, and that it was an impromptu idea. Of course, Jiang Wen had underestimated Lin Yi too much. Lin Yi didn't even need to prepare to kill someone, let alone mess with someone. Huh. Lin Yi smiled faintly, as if saying, good that you know. Jiang Wen looked at Lin Yi's face, and was even more certain that Lin Yi didn't drink properly last time. Ganglu, get the white wine. Jiang Wen ordered. All right, brother in. Yang Ganglu quickly ran out of the private room and gave a few instructions to the waiter at the door. Because he had instructed the waiter beforehand, Yang Ganglu didn't need to say anything unnecessary. Not long after Yang Ganglu returned, the waiter came back with 3 bottles of Mao Tai and a variety of dishes. It was obvious that they had been prepared beforehand. This made Lin Yi feel that Jiang Wen wasn't a good person. There wasn't a single dish on the table when they were drinking beer. Although it was to quench his thirst, drinking on an empty stomach was the easiest way to get drunk. These guys probably ate something before, but Lin Yi didn't. Sneering, Lin Yi thought to himself, it seems like these guys don't just want to get me drunk, they want me to drink myself to death. Since that's the case, I'll drink you to death first. Just 3 bottles of Mao Tai? That's not enough, right? Lin Yi said as he looked at the Mao Tai in the waiter's hands. Oh, Jiang Wen paused. He didn't want to scare Lin Yi with too much. Baijiu wasn't the same as beer, after all. Many people drank beer while hugging a box. But who drank baijiu while hugging a box? But since Lin Yi said so, Jiang Wen went with the flow. Bring a box over. The waiter nodded quickly and went to get the white wine. Ganglu was about to pour himself a glass when Lin Yi stopped him. Lin Yi waved his hand. It's too troublesome to pour it out. Just drink it from the bottle. Drink from the bottle. Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao were a little dumbfounded. They'd never heard of white wine being drunk from the mouth. They were experienced drinkers, and it wasn't as if they'd never competed in drinking before, but this was a little scary. But just because Jiang Wen and the others hadn't heard of it didn't mean that Tai Wei hadn't. His family was in the wine business, and the people he interacted with were all wine merchants. These people were even drunker than the wine jugs, and it wasn't unheard of for them to drink erguo at food stalls. In order to deal with these merchants, Tai Wei had to accompany them to all sorts of events, and so he often went to food stalls. Looks like brother Lin's a master as well. Tai Wei wasn't surprised at all. He had to take Lin Yi seriously as an opponent. But it wasn't to the point of worrying yet. There were so many wine merchants out there, and which one of them wasn't a master drinker? Most of the orders were made by Tai Wei at the table, and so Tai Wei only paid a little more attention to Lin Yi. All right, looks like Wei Bro is a kindred spirit as well. I'll drink first then. Lin Yi took the initiative this time, opening the lid of the Mao Tai in front of him and downing it in one gulp. Wah! It wasn't just Jiang Wen. Even Tai Wei was flabbergasted. White wine could be drunk from a bottle. Wasn't this too magical? Even if Tai Wei usually drank from a bottle with a wine merchant, it was only one sip at a time, and he'd only finish it when there wasn't much left. But drinking it down like beer was something Tai Wei had never seen before. Even so, a feeling of defiance rose from the bottom of his heart. Tai Wei was a publicly acknowledged god of wine in the circle of Songshan's young masters, and now he was being provoked by a nobody that Jiang Wen had ordered him to drink into the hospital. How could Tai Wei take that lying down? He couldn't, because he'd turn into a ninja turtle. Tai Wei sneered coldly. A bottle of baijiu wasn't much to him at all, and his limit was around 5 bottles. This bottle was a little rushed, but Tai Wei could accept it. Tai Wei opened the bottle and downed it in one gulp, just like Lin Yi. It was a little rushed, but it didn't affect him much. His face flushed a little before returning to normal. Although Tai Wei looked fine on the surface, his stomach was still feeling pretty bad. Even someone with a high tolerance for alcohol wouldn't feel good if he poured a bottle of baijiu down his throat, even if he didn't have an indestructible body. Good wine, let's try again. Lin Yi tossed the empty bottle aside and picked up another bottle of white wine. Ugh. Tai Wei wasn't expecting Lin Yi to continue drinking without even resting after one bottle. His face couldn't help but turn a little pale. Let me. Jiang Wen frowned. He hadn't expected Lin Yi to be an alcoholic. It seemed like his plan today was going to be a little hard to pull off. As the saying went, an expert's skill would be known the moment he made a move. Nothing happened to Lin Yi after one bottle. Jiang Wen understood that Lin Yi really was a drinker. Chapter 393. Chapter 393. Wait, puffed. Jiang Wen couldn't hold it in any longer. He spat it out and started coughing. Cough, 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 cough. Jiang Wen had tears coming out of his eyes from the spiciness of the leak. He'd never drunk alcohol in such a rush before. He had a tolerance, but his stomach and esophagus couldn't take it. Jiang Wen's face was white as a sheet as he coughed for a while, with Tai Zhao and Gang Lu patting his back non-stop. It took a while for the color to return to his face. However, under such circumstances, it was impossible for him to continue drinking. Jiang Wen looked at Lin Yi with a hint of venom in his eyes. This guy was a wolf in sheep's clothing. He knew how to drink, but he didn't say anything. He wouldn't have used this trick if he'd known. And bro, are you done? Shall we continue? Lin Yi's words almost made Jiang Wen cough again. Continue? Did he have a death wish? Jiang Wen's face was very ugly, and he wanted to go up and strangle Lin Yi. He was already like this, and the guy was still asking him to drink? Did he want to drink himself to death? He'd forgotten that he was the one who'd wanted to drink Lin Yi to death. Jiang Wen was in a difficult situation. He'd come here today to teach Lin Yi a lesson, but he didn't expect to run into Lin Yi's forte. He'd lose all his face if he gave up now, especially when he saw that Lin Yi was still fiddling with his phone. Jiang Wen knew that Lin Yi must have recorded everything. In an instant, feelings of humiliation, dissatisfaction, anger, and disgust intertwined and flashed through his heart. No, he couldn't give up. Meng Yao would laugh herself to death if he did. He'd wanted to teach Lin Yi a lesson, but he was the one being taught a lesson instead. What would happen to the face of the Song's Han young masters if word got out? Especially after being taught a lesson the first time. This was the second time he came to seek revenge. How would Jiang Wen feel if he got taught a lesson the second time? Let me do it. Tai Wei knew that Jiang Wen wasn't going to be able to hold on much longer as soon as he saw the change in Jiang Wen's face. Tai Wei was the one with the best alcohol tolerance here, and if he didn't step up, no one would be a match for Lin Yi. He hoped that Lin Yi could only drink fast, and that his actual alcohol tolerance was not as good as his. Tai Wei calculated inwardly. He had a capacity for 5 bottles, and he didn't believe that Lin Yi could finish 5 bottles in one go and come out unscathed. All right. Lin Yi said straightforwardly. Are you all right? Of course, Tai Wei said with a cold smile. Don't act all high and mighty. Let's see if you're still standing after 5 bottles. Do you think you're a roly-poly doll? Oh, sorry, I forgot. You're Wei Bro. Why can't Wei Bro? Lin Yi opened the bottle of baijiu and shook it in front of Tai Wei. Damn it! Tai Wei cursed inwardly as he raised his bottle and started drinking with Lin Yi. Full. Tai Wei let out a long breath after finishing the second bottle of baijiu. His body felt like it was on fire, and he wanted to eat some food to calm it down, but he couldn't bring himself to do it, because Lin Yi was sitting there with a straight face and a smile on his face, recording himself with his phone. Tai Wei was pissed off, but he couldn't just eat. He could only hold it in. Tai Wei, eat something first. Weren't you complaining about being hungry before you came? The food's here now. Eat while it's hot. Tai Zhao could tell that his brother wasn't in a good state and helped him out without a word. Tai Wei quickly glanced at Tai Zhao. Yeah, I came here on an empty stomach. I won't hold back then. With that, Tai Wei picked up his chopsticks and started wolfing down the foodlin. He looked at the Tai Wei and Tai Zhao brothers in disdain, but didn't voice it out. Since Wei Bro's already impotent, hungry. Then, Tai Zhao Bro, do you want to continue on his behalf? All right, I'll drink with you. Tai Zhao nodded. But I'm not a good drinker, haha. How about this? You drink it all at once, and I'll drink it in 2 portions. Tai Zhao had seen Jiang Wen's pitiful state, and he didn't have Tai Wei's tolerance level. His tolerance level was about the same as Jiang Wen's, so he might as well be generous and admit that he couldn't hold his liquor, and drink it in 2 portions instead of making a fool out of himself. Sure, no problem. You can even drink half of it. Lin Yi cursed the Su brothers inwardly for being shameless, but he still said it generously. Tai Zhao's heart almost exploded with regret at Lin Yi's words. He could drink half of it? Why didn't you say so earlier? He wouldn't have to drink it in 2 portions if he had. But as shameless as Tai Zhao was, it wasn't to the point of shamelessness. He couldn't go back on his words now. Lin Yi, on the other hand, downed the bottle of Mao Tai without a change in his expression, and Tai Zhao drank it in 2 portions. He didn't spit the alcohol out like Jiang Wen, but he wasn't much better. He sat there motionlessly, evidently choked by the spiciness. His face was bright red, and there were tears in his eyes. He was trying his best not to cough. Like a statue, he stood there motionless. In fact, Tai Zhao didn't dare move at all. He was afraid that he'd spit the alcohol out if he moved. Wei Bro, I don't think your brother can do it. He's not as good as Wei Bro. What do you think? Shall we continue? Lin Yi said as he looked at Tai Wei, who was eating as fast as he could. All right, let's continue. Tai Wei nodded as he wiped his mouth. He'd eaten quite a bit just now, and he'd recovered quite a bit. Another bottle shouldn't be a problem for him, but he understood now that Lin Yi's alcohol tolerance was higher than his. After all, Lin Yi had already downed 4 bottles. Lin Yi finished the 5th bottle without any suspense. Tai Wei went to rest, and it was Gong Lo's turn. Gang Lu said shamelessly, I'll drink half of it. I really can't hold my liquor. I'll go first as a sign of respect. With that, Gang Lu raised his bottle and downed half of it, as if he was afraid that Lin Yi would go back on his words. Wait. Gang Lu put down the bottle before Lin Yi could finish. Oh, Brother Lin, something's up? Gang Lu thought to himself. That had been a close shave. Lin Yi might have gone back on his words if he'd been one step slower. What he'd said to Taizao earlier was probably just to piss him off. There was no way he'd let Taizao off the hook that easily. And so, Gang Lu was very excited at his own cleverness. He was the strategist after all, and there was no point in saying anything else now. What do you want? What can you do? Chapter 394. How should I drink? Is that so? Brother Lin, tell me then. I'll pay attention next time. Gang Lu thought to himself. But it was too late. What I'm trying to say is that you can't hold your liquor well, so you should drink less. It's usually too much, a third is fine. Lin Yi said. Wah. Gang Lu felt his blood rush to his head, and the alcohol rushed to his head as well. He almost passed out. A third was fine? A third? Why didn't he say that earlier? Why? Jiang Wen, Taizao, and Tai Wei were all looking at Gang Lu with sympathy and indignation. It wasn't that Lin Yi didn't have the time to tell him. He could have said it when Gang Lu was drinking. There was no need to wait for him to finish before saying it. One thing was for sure, Lin Yi was toying with Gang Lu. No matter how much Gang Lu drank, Lin Yi would always say something to piss him off. As the saying goes, the onlooker sees the game more clearly than the onlooker. Gang Lu, on the other hand, couldn't see through Jiang Wen's ploy. He felt that he was a strategist, someone with superior intelligence, someone who specialized in scheming against people. But in the end, he'd never schemed against Lin Yi. How could he accept this? He didn't need to drink that much, and yet he'd stupidly drank half a bottle. What a strategist! Gonglo's eyes were seeing stars, and the alcohol kicked in when he got angry, causing him to collapse on the table. Jiang Wen frowned. Wasn't this Gonglo's mental fortitude a little too weak? How was he supposed to be a strategist like this? But everyone else at the table had taken turns drinking with Lin Yi, and the kid had drunk 6 bottles of baijiu already. Why was he still acting like nothing had happened? Did he grow up in a wine vat? But Jiang Wen couldn't just let it go. There was no way he was going to stop now that the fight had started. Wouldn't stopping mean he was admitting defeat to Lin Yi? Fuck. Admitting defeat was fine if no one was watching, but Lin Yi was playing with his phone, recording everything that was going on. His image would be ruined if Meng Yao saw this. Let's continue. Tai Wei gritted his teeth. House Su wasn't like Housen, and they had to rely on Jiang Wen for a lot of business. His cousin was one of the Songshan young masters, but his influence was far below House An's. House An had some influence in the province, while House Su's was limited to Songshan. House An had some influence in the province, but House Su's was limited to Songshan. Haha, I was just worried that I wouldn't have an opponent. Lin Yi said as he eyed Tai Wei. The guy was really putting his life on the line. Tai Wei opened a bottle of Mao Tai, hesitating for a bit before asking. 3, his limit was 5 bottles, but that was limited to drinking slowly and steadily. He wouldn't be able to last much longer if he kept drinking like this. His stomach was hurting, and Tai Wei had no choice but to show his weakness. He wanted to ask Lin Yi if he could drink 1/3 of what he said earlier, but Lin Yi didn't give Tai Wei a chance to speak. Wei bro is the best, not like that weak guy from before. He passed out after drinking half a bottle. Wei bro chugged it down to the bottle. Nothing happened. How else would he call him Wei bro? He'd just call him weak bro, right? Tai Wei's face was green. Can't you fucking wait until I'm done? Can you? Can you? Tai Wei was cursing, but Lin Yi's words had already goaded him to this point. He couldn't bring up the 1/3 thing anymore. Wouldn't that make him weak, bro? Tai Wei had no choice but to say, "All right, but I didn't drink it in a rush. Please forgive me." "Haha, it's fine." Lin Yi smiled as he raised the bottle in front of him and downed it in one gulp. Tai Wei sighed. He had no choice but to copy Lin Yi, picking up the bottle and chugging it down one mouthful at a time. He had to change his breath a couple of times in between before finishing the bottle. It seemed like Tai Wei was at his limit now. Tai Wei wanted to cry when he saw that Lin Yi was fine, his face still red and without a hint of tiredness. How the hell did he have to compete in drinking with a psycho like this? He wouldn't have competed in drinking if he'd known this was going to happen, even if he had to compete in eating shit. Should we continue? Tai Wei couldn't take it anymore. He'd downed 4 bottles already, and while 5 was usually his limit, he'd basically throw up afterwards. But he couldn't do that now and could only hold it in. Not anymore. Lin Yi shook his head, and Tai Wei let out a long sigh of relief. Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao, on the other hand, let out a sigh of relief as well. But they were a little weird. Why wasn't Lin Yi continuing? Could he be at his limit as well? That couldn't be. But it was fine as long as he didn't continue. It didn't matter if he was at his limit or if he'd found his conscience. It's good that he's not continuing. There's no point in competing like this anymore. It's so boring drinking bottle after bottle. Tai Wei said in agreement. It is, and that's why I've decided to stop. Lin Yi smiled. Let's play something more interesting, shall we? What's interesting? Tai Wei suddenly felt that something was wrong when he saw that bright smile on Lin Yi's face. Had he been tricked? What was Lin Yi up to? Waiter, bring me some red wine. Lin Yi called out to the door. Oh, red wine. Tai Wei blinked, but was overjoyed. The alcohol content of red wine was far lower than white wine, and he'd be able to hold out for a while if they'd switched to red wine. Tai Wei felt that Lin Yi was probably at his limit as well. He'd had 4 bottles, but Lin Yi had 7. What did 7 bottles of white wine mean? He'd be lucky if he didn't drink himself to death. Perhaps Lin Yi was just putting on a good show, making people think that he was fine. Otherwise, why would he switch to red wine? Tai Wei was afraid that Lin Yi would change his mind again and quickly called out, "Waiter, red wine." "Hurry up." "Yes, coming." The waiter carried a case of red wine into the room. He'd had experience with beer and white wine before, so he didn't need to be told to bring the case of red wine in. Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao breathed out in relief as well. They'd really been afraid that Tai Wei wouldn't be able to hold out and collapse, but it was fine now. Tai Wei would definitely be able to hold out for a while if they were competing in red wine. Jiang Wen put the 2 bottles on the table, one for Lin Yi and the other in front of Tai Wei. Chapter 395. Drinking so much that he's vomiting blood. You'll drink however I say? Lin Yi raised the bottle of red wine as he looked at Tai Wei. The initiative was now in Lin Yi's hands. Lin Yi had somehow become the owner of this room. Yes, we'll drink however you say. Tai Wei nodded. Who was he afraid of when it came to drinking red wine? All right. Lin Yi put down the bottle of red wine and stood up, walking to the sterilized cupboard at the side of the room. He took out 2 large beer mugs, putting one in front of Tai Wei and the other back on his seat. Tai Wei didn't understand what Lin Yi was doing with the mugs. Was he going to pour it out? Red wine could be drunk from the mouth, too. As Tai Wei, Jiang Wen, and Tai Zhao were wondering what was going on, Lin Yi opened the bottle of red wine and poured it all into the large beer mug in front of him. Tai Wei was about to do the same when he saw Lin Yi pick up another can of beer from the table, opening it and pouring it into the mug. The corner of Tai Wei's mouth twitched. Mixing red wine and beer? It'd be one thing if it were regular beer, but this high alcohol content beer. But it was still way better than drinking white wine. Tai Wei gritted his teeth. It was still acceptable. And so he followed Lin Yi's example and poured the red wine and beer into the mug. But just as he was about to say something, Lin Yi moved again. This time, Lin Yi opened a bottle of white wine and poured it into the mug as well. Wah! Tai Wei was dumbfounded. White wine, red wine, beer, and white wine mixed together. Wouldn't that kill him? Drinking a small glass or two normally wouldn't be a problem. In fact, Tai Wei would often show off his special skill to the wine merchants as well, drinking red, white, and yellow wine at the same time, leaving them in awe. Tai Wei would enjoy it every time he did that, proud and arrogant. He was proud of his special skill. But now, Tai Wei's ultimate technique was nothing more than a joke in front of this huge mug of beer. Drinking a small cup was fine, but drinking such a large beer mug, wasn't that courting death? Lin Yi didn't care what Tai Wei was thinking. He picked up his beer mug and raised it at Tai Wei. Come on, let's continue. Tai Wei was so regretful he was about to explode. He'd thought that Lin Yi only wanted red wine, and that was why he'd said that he could drink whatever he wanted. But now that Lin Yi wanted this mixed wine, there was nothing he could do even if he didn't want it. Jiang Wen and Tai Zhao, on the other hand, didn't know what to do. They couldn't help Tai Wei at all, so they could only support him mentally. Lin Yi downed the entire mug of mixed wine in one go as he looked at Tai Wei with a smile. Tai Wei had no choice but to force himself to pick up his mug and finish it all in one go. Tai Wei's face was a mix of red and white after drinking it, and it was as fascinating as it could get. He clutched his stomach with one hand as beads of sweat formed on his forehead. Tai Wei felt like he was going to die. His stomach felt like it was going to explode, and he felt like he was going to break down at any moment. But he couldn't lose face. Absolutely not. Good. Wei Bro is indeed stronger than most people. Lin Yi nodded in praise. Huh. Tai Wei wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He could only smile helplessly at Lin Yi's praise. He'd rather be a bad bro than Wei Bro right now. Let's continue. It's more interesting this way. Lin Yi said as he went to get a few more bottles of red wine, putting a few in front of Tai Wei and a few in front of himself. Lin Yi continued mixing the mixed wine, and Tai Wei had no choice but to follow Lin Yi's lead. Lin Yi raised his mug, downing it even faster than water. Tai Wei took a deep breath and started pouring the wine down his throat as well, but he couldn't take it anymore halfway through. He felt like his stomach wasn't his anymore. It was squirming rapidly, and with a puff, he spat out all the wine he'd drunk earlier, mixed with a large amount of blood. Cough, cough, cough. Tai Wei started coughing loudly, spitting out large amounts of blood with each cough. Tai Wei, what's wrong? Tai Zhao jumped as he hurried over to support Tai Wei, patting his back lightly, but the coughing didn't stop. Tai Wei was still coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. Tai Zhao, get Tai Wei to the hospital. Jiang Wen frowned. He could tell that Tai Wei was at his limit today. He'd forced the last 2 glasses of mixed wine down his throat. It wouldn't have mattered if it had been regular baijiu, but it had to be mixed. How could he not be in trouble? I'm fine, I think it's stomach bleeding. Finally, Tai Wei stopped coughing. He'd choked on the mixture of wine and blood earlier, which was why he couldn't stop coughing. Tai Wei waved his hand. I'll go to the hospital myself. Jiang Wen bro, cousin, I'll leave this to you guys. We'll send you. Tai Zhao was very worried about Tai Wei's condition. No, all my hard work would go to waste if I surrender now. Tai Wei shook his head, not wanting to surrender just like that. All right, be careful. Jiang Wen sighed. Call me when you get to the hospital. Got it, and bro. Tai Wei endured the pain as he limped out of the room, running down the stairs quickly. Brother Lin, look, Tai Wei's got a stomach bleeding. Shouldn't we drink a little more gracefully? Tai Zhao's eyes were filled with hatred as he spoke. Tai Wei was his cousin, after all. How could he not be pissed off that he was in the hospital? Jiang Wen's face was dark as well, not smiling at all. He probably hated Lin Yi as well. Stomach bleeding? I think it's a stomach perforation. Lin Yi shook his head. Don't die. What? Stomach perforation? Taizao was shocked. Why didn't you say so earlier? You didn't ask me. Lin Yi shrugged. I could have given him a massage. Maybe it'd even stop the bleeding. It was only then that Jiang Wen and Taizao remembered that Lin Yi seemed to know medicine, and that he wasn't weak at all. It was Lin Yi who'd saved Jiang Wen when he got food poisoning last time. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.